But I think on social media people are defined by their opinions. But when you work with people, people can have different opinions, but you still like them. I quite like. There's a lot of people I disagree with politically, and I like them. And there's lots of people I agree with politically, and I can't stand them.
I think that's a very good point. I think it's probably a good way to end.
Yeah.
Eddie Marsan, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for being on Hard Talk.
That was Hard Talk. I'm Jeff Goods. You're listening to CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. Some nice light rain falling in the city of Winnipeg. Streets are wet, but it's coming and going in different volumes, and that's going to continue. So we do have puddles out there this morning in the city, and our current temperature in Winnipeg is 6 degrees with that light rain. Mostly cloudy up in Thompson. It's -1, and Brandon is 4 degrees and cloudy as well. Thanks for joining us here on Information Radio. This is CBC, your morning show. We're on air till 8:37 a.m. You can also catch us on the app or on YouTube. 3 minutes to 6. Let's say good morning to the team. Hello, May McKillop. May's going to be directing the show today. Good morning, Abby Adeyemi, back behind the controls, also covers weather on the air. And good morning to Brad Lillies, who's also in our control room this morning, rounding out our team. Heather Wells is here also, but in our news center this morning, and she's here with what's making headlines.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg senior says he will never again buy travel insurance by clicking a box on an airline's website. James Parker says he learned the hard way. Cancellation insurance comes with a lot of fine print. We'll hear what happened to the 78-year-old and his wife this January when they had to cancel a flight to Calgary. That story from the I-Team is coming up. And a Winnipeg mom says changes for students with disabilities may benefit families in the city's largest school division. The head of the Winnipeg School Division wants schools to prioritize including students with disabilities in traditional classrooms near their homes. We'll hear more, and we'll hear from that mom in our next local news at 6:30.
Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
So 60% chance these showers will stay with us today, a high of 14. More rain tonight, 10 to 20 millimeters expected. This is that system that is going to make the south wet and the north potentially white with snow. It starts, though, as rain this morning across the north in Manitoba, especially around Thompson. Coming up on the program today, in the first hour of the show, swapping steak for sardines. We're going to talk about the potential health benefits of trading in red meat for fish. Also, we're going to interview a local Anishinaabe student who's been lending himself to acting roles in local TV and movies. Now he is working through a program in Los Angeles that he's been accepted to. So he is going to join us in studio to talk more about that. We also meet a Winnipeg woman who's following her dreams to become a Muay Thai world champion. She's got a competition, a big one coming up in Calgary. And yes, we are going to talk about the federal budget, which is out today. So stay tuned. A busy show ahead. Right now, though, World Report.
On Cue with Tom Power. When Derek Whibley started writing the new Sum 41 album Heaven and Hell, he didn't know it would be their last. He'll tell you how the process of writing helped him reach a decision he's been debating for years, and how do you call your band and tell them it's over. Done with lies and all that you gotta say. That's coming up on Cue, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Today is Budget Day in Ottawa. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says it will lead Canada to a fairer economy. Here's what he told the Canadian Chamber of Commerce.
Everyone here in this room knows that the economy isn't just about numbers, it's about people.
But before Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland presents her budget in Parliament, we will get a look at the state of the current economy. The latest inflation numbers come out this morning. CBC senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong has more.
Federal budgets are often something of a balancing act. On the one hand, the government wants to address some real and urgent policy issues like housing, for example. On the other hand, new spending can erode any progress made in the fight against inflation.
You know, it's a very difficult bind that the government finds itself in because...
That's Dylan Smith, senior economist at Rosenberg Research. He says this morning's inflation data won't change the longer-term assumptions the federal government used to build the budget, but
I think what can change is how people interpret it and how, especially they respond to the assumptions that are being made on inflation in that budget.
After months of steady progress on price growth, the year-over-year rate of inflation has slowed all the way to 2.8%. But today's numbers could see a slight re-acceleration, largely due to an increase in gasoline prices. That won't help the case of those trying to convince the Bank of Canada to start cutting rates. But how large will the budget itself loom for Bank Governor Tiff Macklem?
Fiscal policy is appropriately the responsibility of elected governments, not the Bank of Canada. Our elected politicians have a difficult job. They've got many choices to make.
In other words, he's watching along with everyone else. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
Today's budget includes more money for national defense. The Liberal government outlined a new defense policy last week. Now the budget will show us how quickly that will be funded. As Murray Brewster tells us, it may not be enough to reassure anxious allies or satisfy military critics.
Your entire policy update is aspirational. It's full of exploring options. It's full of reaffirming existing commitments.
Conservative MP Pat Kelly giving voice to the skeptics of the Liberal government's new defence policy presented last week with much fanfare. We'll get a sense today how much of that policy is aspirational and how much is real. Bill Blair is the defence minister.
In Canada, we do not publish our aspirations. We publish our funded plans. And this document talks about the money that we'll be committing in this upcoming budget.
The policy committed to, among other things, buying airborne early warning planes to watch the country's far north for missile attacks and to buy long-range missiles for the Army. While the Defense Department is getting more money overall, it is going through an internal budget-cutting exercise to help pay for these new capabilities. General Wayne Eyre, the country's top military commander, was asked how all of this is going to shake out.
We don't know yet. And so last fall, we had those cuts, and the team has gone through a tremendous amount of painful work to determine where those would be applied.
The budget is also expected to contain money for Ukraine as part of the security framework agreement signed by the two nations last winter. Although separate from the defense appropriation, Canada has committed thus far over $4 billion in military aid to the embattled Eastern European nation, much of it still being delivered. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
You can listen to our federal budget special this afternoon on CBC Radio, or try something new. Listen on your CBC News app by going to your local tab. Budget coverage with Susan Bonner and Catherine Cullen begins at 4 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 in Newfoundland. It is day 2 of jury selection in the Donald Trump hush money case, and if yesterday's proceedings are any indication of what is to come, the process could take weeks. The CBC's Chris Reyes joins me now from outside the courthouse in Manhattan. And Chris, given what we have seen develop inside the courtroom, what are we expecting today?
Well, when court resumes this morning, potential jurors will once again be called into that courtroom with Donald Trump. 96 people were brought in yesterday, but more than half raised their hands when asked if they felt they couldn't be fair or impartial, and they were dismissed, adding to the signs that this process will be a long one. The judge in the case has granted more time for attorneys to question the potential jurors. One of Trump's lawyers, Will Scharf, gave his assessment of what he thinks will be the challenge in getting to that 12 jurors out of a pool of hundreds.
When you've had wall-to-wall media coverage in, frankly, the media capital of the world, it's going to be very tough to find people who can come into the courtroom without preconceived biases about the evidence, about the law, who will accept the judge's instructions and who will view the facts dispassionately.
Once the jury is finalized, they will take an oath to be fair and impartial, and the trial will begin, and Trump will be in court every day for it.
Now, the judge has made some rulings when it comes to what the jury will get to see and hear in this case. What can you tell us?
That's right. The judge ruled yesterday that the infamous Access Hollywood tape, where Trump could be heard bragging about grabbing women's genitals, can be discussed but not played for the jury. The jury will also not get to hear a video deposition from the E. Jean Carroll case, the writer who recently won her civil defamation and sexual assault lawsuit against Trump. But it is expected that this trial will resurface many other details in Trump's history that go back to these alleged affairs from the early 2000s that are at the heart of this case.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
The CBC's Chris Reyes in Manhattan. Police in Australia now say a stabbing at a church in Sydney was an act of terrorism. A bishop and a priest were wounded yesterday. A 16-year-old boy lunged at them with a knife during the service. Karen Webb is the New South Wales Police Commissioner.
We believe there are elements that are satisfied in terms of religious motivated extremism and, of course, the intimidation of the public through that person's acts.
Many of those attending the Christian Assyrian Church are from Iraq and Syria. 4 people and the attacker were injured. This is the second recent stabbing attack in Sydney. Over the weekend, a man killed 6 people in a shopping mall. Police say he was targeting women. British MPs are about to debate one of the world's toughest anti-tobacco bills. It would apply to Generation Alpha, anyone born after 2009. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak wants to make them the first smoke-free generation. And if his bill passes, they will be banned from buying cigarettes. But it is the sale. It's not just the sale of tobacco products that would be illegal. The act of smoking would not be outlawed. A 92-year-old man in Newfoundland says he finally got his money back. He was charged more than $1,000 for commemorative coins he didn't want. But once he spoke to CBC News, the company gave him a refund. Ariana Kelland has the latest from St. John's.
I will not deal with the Bradford Exchange again.
92-year-old Lloyd Walker has his money back. Walker placed an order last July with the Bradford Exchange, an American company with an office in this country. It's been selling collectibles, trinkets, and jewelry since the 1970s. Walker thought he was ordering a single coin, but instead says he was unwittingly enrolled in a monthly program that saw more than $1,000 charged to his credit card. Walker says after the story aired, 2 representatives from the company called.
I said there was nothing wrong with the coins. I said it was the Slovene way you went about tricking me into more coins.
The Bradford Exchange has stressed that its subscription and return policies are clear. Coins can be returned for money back at any time. Julia Lewis is interim CEO at the Better Business Bureau for the Atlantic region. She says in general, complaints over automatic subscriptions or programs are common.
Often enough for us to create publications and tips, creating awareness for what consumers should be looking for when they're engaging with subscription service.
Back in St. John's, even with his money back, Walker says he's still not happy it happened at all. Ariana Kelland, CBC News, St. John's.
The Black Entertainment Television Experience is back after a 5-year hiatus.
I like dollars, I like diamonds, I like stunning, I like shining, I like $1 million deals. Where's my pen?
Cardi B, Queen Latifah, and The Roots will headline concerts to celebrate the return of the BET Experience. The shows will take place in Los Angeles over 2 days, and it all leads up to the BET Awards on June 30th in Los Angeles. The awards celebrate Black excellence in music, film, sports, and philanthropy.
Hop up the stoop, jump in the coop, big dip on top of the roof, flexing them as hard as I can.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Yeah, they call me Cardi B. I run this like cardio. Diamond district in the chain.
If you're feeling insecure and you need a dose of like what self-confidence looks like, just watch some Cardi B, man. It is 6:10 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. or on the app. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us this morning. Thanks for being here. In Winnipeg, we are wet. We got puddles. It's going to rain more. And of course, we do have that special weather statement for parts of the north. So we'll hear all about that in a moment. Welcome to your Tuesday morning. This hour on the program, we are going to talk about the other thing that today is. It is also Budget Day, Federal Budget Day. Now, coming up at 10 to 7, we're going to get some of the tee up to discuss what the finance minister might say when she rises this afternoon in the House of Commons. This is the 2024 federal budget. So Ryan Tumulty is going to be joining us. They've already leaked out a whole bunch of information about what's in this. So what more could be coming? We'll get some analysis. Also, a conversation about the health benefits of eating fish instead of meat. Stay tuned. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells, who's here with other news updates from Manitoba from our news center. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, new data obtained by CBC is shedding light on the number and duration of rural ER closures. Last year, emergency departments across Manitoba experienced a total of 80,000 hours worth of disruptions. ERs in the Interlake area were hit hardest, largely because of staffing. We're going to head to Arborg to hear from the mayor there about his concerns. Businesses say the province's new security rebate doesn't offer enough help. Manitoba homeowners and business owners can now get up to $300 towards things like security cameras and alarm systems. The Canadian Federation of Independent Business wants to meet with the Justice Minister to lobby for more. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 6:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, 6:12 the time right now. Abby Adeyemi joins me. Are we on the air?
Yeah, we are.
Okay, this will be relatable to listeners. So, and this is interesting because just full disclosure, my husband yesterday was running late. Today I was just a titch behind, and then I had a little bit of a technical glitch, which just put me further behind. What is it about when you start your day like that? You know, you could be a couple minutes late for like anything else in midday, and it feels like, okay, I'm a bit late, I'm okay. In the morning, it's like physically painful, and I feel like
very painful in the morning. I also had such crisis this morning. I was like, did I leave the stove on? I was just, like literally driving away. I'm like, nope, I need to go check. I made a Yui, and then I got in. I'm like, oh, lo and behold, it's not on.
It's off.
I turned it off.
We're going to make a fine team. Okay, we'll support each other.
So you're not alone in this.
All right, let's get into what's going on in this rainy morning, Abby.
Yes, it's obvious 7 degrees outside on the cloudy skies, and it's wet. We've got light rain, and that's what Winnipeg is seeing right now. It looks like the most part of the province will be seeing rain today. Today's forecast calls for cloudy skies and some on and off showers expected throughout the day, and we're looking at a high of 14 degrees here in Winnipeg. As we move into the night, the rain is expected to intensify with amounts ranging from 10 to 20 millimeters, and the wind will be coming, we got this wind coming from the east, and it's going to be more like a light breeze later before tomorrow morning. So if you're out and about, make sure you just stay dry. Now, we have a weather statement for the northern parts of the province from Environment Canada. It looks like Mother Nature has a mix of rain and snow in store for folks in the northern parts of the province. The statement has it that this slow-moving low-pressure system is heading that way, bringing rain starting this morning and then a transition to snow by tomorrow. Now, the snow is expected to, be around till late Thursday. We're looking at significant precipitations with a total amount ranging from 20 to 40 millimeters over the next 3 days. However, the timing of this transition from rain to snow might vary, affecting the actual amount in each area. Now, for those up north in places like Lean Lake, Thompson, Gillam, and Flin Flon, you should be expecting mostly snow tonight into Wednesday morning. And for communities further south, still in the northern area, like the Par and Norway House, they may be seeing rain turning into snow as the event progresses. But that's what you should brace yourself for, some rain and some snow moving into Wednesday and probably early Thursday. But right now in Winnipeg, the forecast has showers for us throughout the day, and we're heading to a high of 14. But I just want to have the pedestrians in consideration this morning.
Yeah,
if you're driving, don't splash them, please.
So speaking of which, we got one quick traffic note here. Southbound Rothesay, Donwood to Gilmore is closed for sewer work. And other than that, 788-3093. Well, we begin this morning with Chimwewe Undi, who doesn't just write poems about Winnipeg. She's a local poet. They're rather a local poet who writes about what's being left out of Winnipeg. Conversations about queerness, conversations about colonialism and racism, while always leaving room for art, dance parties, and pop culture references. Chim is a lawyer and Winnipeg's Poet Laureate for 2023 and 2024. And her debut collection of poetry, Scientific Marvel, launches tonight at McNally Robinson if you want to check it out. She spoke with CBC's Faith Fundal yesterday.
So the title Scientific Marvel comes from beauty school. It doesn't exist anymore, but the sign is still up down on Portage Avenue. And since I was probably a teenager, I saw that sign and I thought that would make a great title for a poetry collection. One, it's just a really funny name for a beauty school. I think that some people's beauty takes both science and magic. But also I thought of it as a really interesting way to think about poetry writing itself, which aims for both wonder and precision, the way that both magic and science might do.
There's lots of connections between what comes up for you when you think of Scientific Marvel and what you've actually written. This is your debut collection of poems.
It is.
When you think about the feelings, what will come up for you as you release the book into the world?
It's sort of unbelievable. It's really the one goal that I've had since I was really a small child, to write a book, to see something that I made with my mind and my hands on a shelf. And so it feels, incredible, amazing. It's also overwhelming to have something in the world that I hope will outlast my time on the earth, and I hope it's a positive legacy, to have this book out.
Have you figured out what it is about that makes it so overwhelming?
It's just a goal that I've always had, that I've achieved. I have to kind of adjust what goals I'm going to have going forward. And it's a culmination of really a lot of the book itself. It really didn't take, it took maybe 2.5 years to write, but it also took my entire life to write.
It's largely about Winnipeg. Scientific Marvel. What is it about the city that I guess that you draw inspiration from, or that inspires you?
Winnipeg's my home. It's the only city that I've lived in that's felt like it's mine in any way. And despite that, it still feels like it's not mine or made for me in a lot of ways. Being an immigrant, being a Black person, a woman. And so I wanted to think about the stories that we tell ourselves about the places that we call home, the cities, the provinces, the nations, the family homes, the relationships that we call home, ourselves as homes, the things that are so sort of apparent or obvious that we stop noticing them. I wanted to take the time to notice those things and to ask questions about them.
You mentioned that this has been in the making for some time now. What impact did becoming Winnipeg's poet laureate have in, I guess, in this book, in completing this book?
So it's sort of funny. I sold the manuscript of this book about maybe 2 weeks before I was asked to be poet laureate. So it was a big month for me.
Yeah.
And I was already really thinking deeply about what it means to be a city, what Winnipeg is as a city, and what its people are and what they do and how we form the city together. And being poet laureate has called me to ask those questions sort of on a wider stage and to think more deeply about the role that poetry plays in asking those questions and in leading us to answers to them. So, a bulk of the book was written before I became poet laureate, but the work of the book, I think, is continued through my work as poet laureate.
Have you been surprised by folks' answers to those questions when you put it out there? What do they say to you?
I think the only thing I knew for sure is that everybody lives in a different Winnipeg, that Winnipeg means a different thing to every single person who lives here or who has lived here, who might live here someday. And those experiences overlap in meaningful ways that I'm interested in and map onto intersections of identity that I'm also very interested in. But I'm fascinated by what other people's experience of the city are, especially when they differ from mine. And that's been a real pleasure, is hearing about what the city means to other people.
What do you hope that Scientific Marvel will do to Winnipeggers, whether you're new or have been here forever? What are you hoping that the book of poems will do to folks having that realization, or at least unpacking what does Winnipeg look like to them?
I always say that I think poems ask more questions than provide answers. And I hope that some of the questions that I pose through my poetry that have to do with the questions of what do we think of ourselves as a city? What does any city think of itself as a city? What kind of lives do we prioritize over other lives? What kind of future do we want the city to have, and what work are we doing to reach that future? The poem is, or the book of poems is not a political manifesto by any means, but there certainly are conversations that I have in the book that I hope we continue having in the world.
You have a poem for us.
I do. So this poem is called an ekphrasis, which is a kind of poem written after a piece of art. In this case, the piece of art is graffiti scribbled kind of around the corner at Yonge and Broadway that said, "Taylor, I'm at 412 Furby." And what is aerosol's lineage if not a beckoning? And what is worth spraying if it isn't an oath? I mean, worse things have yellowed this corner and folded it to something to pass between palms. And maybe any map is a better god than this brick. And if architecture speaks, who gets to spell out what it says? And yes, the flowers are fading out of hue. And yes, you can see it from every window on the street. And no, you can't see the river, but look. You can tell what's given over to its brown lips.
So that is a reading by Chimwewe Undi, lawyer and poet, and Winnipeg's Poet Laureate for 2023 and 2024. Her debut collection of poems is titled Scientific Marvel. There is a book launch event at McNally Robinson in Grant Park. If you want to check it out tonight, could be a really nice thing to do since it's going to be raining outside. Grab your umbrella, head inside, and listen to some reading. It starts at 7 o'clock.
Narrative, lyric, heroic, romantic, verse, or prose. The 2024 CBC Poetry Prize is on. Send in your best unpublished poem or poetry collection. Up for grabs, cash prizes from the Canada Council for the Arts, a 2-week writing residency at the Banff Centre for Arts and Creativity, and your work published on CBC Books. Contest closes June 1st. For rules and more, go to cbcbooks.ca.
Well, next on the show, it might be time to dust off those cans of fish at the back of the cupboard because a new study in the journal BMJ Global Health says swapping red meat for fish, in particular fish like sardines and anchovies, could prevent up to 750,000 deaths a year from diet-related disease. In a moment, we're going to dig down on the research. But first, Abby's going to try to convince me to like sardines. My dad ate those things like mad, like right out of the jar or out of the can, peeled it back, talked about how good they were. You're into it too, right?
I'm a fish person for the most part,
okay.
So sardines are kind of good. And if you actually have the real sardine from the sea and you grill it or you smoke it, oh my goodness mercy. I'll make them for you someday.
Really? I don't know. You're going to have a long way to go.
I will convert you.
Okay. Well, my next guest is going to try to convert me as well, and everyone listening that is maybe not there yet in terms of eating sardines or swapping everything out for fish. Julie Van Rosendahl is here. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what do you make of this study that, more of us should be thinking about fish? I mean, it's not the first study of its kind, but yet again, it's a reminder.
Well, it's the first sort of comparison of its kind. This team of Japanese and Australian researchers took data from 137 countries and looked at red meat consumption, which is increasingly associated with an elevated risk of mortality in humans as well as harm to the environment. And then compared it to forage fish. So the small fish like sardines, herring, mackerel, anchovies, smelts that feed on plankton and other tiny organisms and then are preyed on by larger fish and are very nutrient dense. They're an excellent source of omega-3 fatty acids, which have a positive effect on heart health. And so in the study, they replaced the red meat consumption in each country with foraged fish without exceeding the potential supply of foraged fish and determined that such a substitution could cut the number of preventable deaths in half, which is significant. I mean, in Canada, heart disease is the number 2 cause of death. So, that's on top of the reduction in environmental impact.
Can you talk a little bit more about the environmental impact of this?
Yeah, so these sort of small, oily fish are the most abundant fish species in the ocean and an important part of the ocean's ecosystem. But the researchers said that these fish also have the lowest carbon footprint of any animal food source. So, they're affordable, they're shelf stable if you buy them in a can, which is fairly rare for that good quality protein.
What would you say to someone who's wondering about bones in the fish, if they've never had these particular, varieties of fish? What should they know about them?
Yeah. Well, and so the bones make them really particularly abundant in calcium. So sometimes you get them with the bones and eat them whole. Sometimes they're filleted. Sometimes they're fresh, right? Which, yes, are so delicious, just tossed on the grill. Sometimes I use a cast iron skillet, if you have really small fish that you're worried are going to fall down into the grates. But, they're really high in protein and iron, vitamin B12, vitamin D, so rich in omega-3 fatty acids. They contain almost every nutrient your body needs. So if you are worried about the bones, when you buy canned fish, they're very soft. So you could pull them out and feed them to your cat, or just mash them with a fork and use them in things like, in sandwiches, just like tuna salad, or make fish cakes with mashed potato, and that sort of offsets the richness of those small fish. If you mix sort of equal parts mashed potato and fish, roll them in panko, pan fry them. Sardine toasts are amazing. Maybe it'll be like the new avocado toast, sardine toast. So just like, you think? TikTok?
What's the texture like?
Well, the canned are very soft. Fresh ones, obviously, more firm.
More structure,
and,
yeah.
So very soft. So you can sort of mash them onto toast, add a little bit of purple onion or shallot and something acidic like lemon or capers. Sometimes if you get the pricier cans, they're a little bit firmer. There's actually a really great Sicilian pasta dish, a classic, that's made with sardines and breadcrumbs. And if you get them packed in oil, then you get that sort of fishy oil as well. And you toast the breadcrumbs in the oil with a little bit of garlic. And then you add the sardine fillets and toss it with the pasta. Your breath would be amazing.
Well, how do you get the same health benefits if you are trying to cut out meat, but maybe you're not going the sardine route? I'm just curious what else you might consider adding to your diet.
Well, if you're looking to boost your omega-3s, flaxseed and flax oil are great sources. If you do flaxseed, it's better to eat ground flaxseed. You can just grind them in a coffee grinder just because they're so tiny and hard that they kind of pass right through unless they're broken up. And chia seeds similarly are amazing. They're a great source of protein, a great source of omega-3s. Even walnuts are a great source of omega-3s. And if you're looking at reducing environmental impact, the UN's comparison of the carbon footprint of different food products has beef, which was, red meat was looked at in the study. Beef contributes 70.6 kilograms of greenhouse gas emissions per kilogram. And to compare, nuts is 0.4 kilograms of greenhouse gas emissions per kilogram. So, so there are other sources of omega-3s as well.
Thank you, Julie. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That is Julie Van Rosendaal, a food writer and cookbook author, talking about a really interesting piece of information that came out, a study in the Journal of BMJ Global Health. It says swapping meat for fish could prevent up to 750,000 deaths a year from diet-related disease. It's a big number. We have more numbers coming up. We have business news with Crystalie Ramlakan after 6:30 here. And this morning in the business news, the federal budget is being tabled today. We're going to ask through her lens, her business lens, what some of the things are that we can expect in the budget. Remember, it preempts Up to Speed this afternoon as we carry it live. And then Up to Speed will kick in after the budget details come out here on the radio and on GEM or wherever you're streaming. And we'll have local reaction. Right now, though, your CBC Manitoba News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. Streets are wet. It's 7 degrees right now at 6:30, and we're anticipating a good chance that showers will continue, 60% possibility. A high today of 14, and then rain in earnest tonight, 10 to 20 millimeters expected as we chill out with a low of 3. Rural emergency departments across the province last year were closed for tens of thousands of hours. As CBC's Josh Crabb tells us, it's causing uncertainty and anxiety among people who live in rural Manitoba.
Last year, the emergency department in Arborg was one of 4 in Manitoba that closed indefinitely. Mayor Peter Duick says people have to drive 30 minutes to Gimli or an hour to Selkirk for treatment.
People can get just a cut in the finger that needs 3 stitches. You don't want to go to Selkirk for 3 stitches.
Across the province in 2023, rural emergency departments were shut down for more than 80,000 hours. That's according to data obtained by CBC News. It's largely due to staffing. Neepawa physician Dr. Nichelle Desolé says that causes uncertainty for people.
I'm sure it's stressful to think, what if I'm feeling unwell this weekend? Where am I going to go?
Dozens of others closed repeatedly, often for short times. Dr. Alex Chachinoff says it's not really an ER if it's not open 24/7.
The expectation of the public should be that an ER can handle any emergency, at least the first phase of it, and that it's open when you need it.
Manitoba's health minister didn't say exactly what the future holds for ERs that have closed frequently or indefinitely. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Arborg.
Today is Budget Day in Ottawa. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says it will lead Canada to a fairer economy. Here's what Trudeau told the Canadian Chamber of Commerce.
Everyone here in this room knows that the economy isn't just about numbers, it's about people.
But before Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland presents her budget in Parliament, we will get a look at the state of the current economy. The latest inflation numbers also are out this morning. And you can listen to our federal budget special today. Our coverage begins at 3 o'clock this afternoon Central Time, right here on CBC Radio 1. A Winnipeg senior is questioning the value of buying flight cancellation insurance after his claim was denied. CBC I-Team's Caroline Bargout reports.
James Parker bought 2 WestJet tickets to Calgary last December so that he and his wife could visit relatives in January. A few weeks later, they discovered they couldn't stay at their accommodations because of a flood. The 78-year-old had purchased cancellation insurance through the WestJet website and thought he could get a refund. But it turned out it was not a covered reason listed on his policy.
I understand it's a business to make money, but I think there should be leeway to deal with changes or modifications that arise, because not everything can be written down, you know? I mean, it's life.
The Travel Health Insurance Association of Canada says coverage differs from policy to policy and that people should always read the fine print before traveling. Caroline Bargout, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Winnipeg School Division wants more students who live with disabilities to be in catchment schools in their own neighborhoods. A letter from the superintendent to families says families will be given a choice, but principals and school teams are being asked to think about how students in specialized programs can be included. Rachel Smith has a 14-year-old son with cerebral palsy.
There were numerous times where it was suggested that he would be better off in a program outside of our neighborhood, and that wasn't what we wanted for him. So to me, what's happening now is I wouldn't have to have that fight in this day and age in the Winnipeg School Division.
Superintendent Matt Henderson met with educational assistants yesterday to discuss the changes. He says there will be no job losses or reductions to specialized programming. Manitoba's seen an almost 5-fold increase in opioid-related deaths between 2019 and 2021. That's according to a study we told you about yesterday in the Canadian Medical Association Journal. Levi Foy is executive director at Sunshine House. It operates the province's only mobile overdose prevention site. Foy says for the most part, the latest numbers are not surprising, but one surprising finding was the highest number of people who died from opioid overdoses were men in their 30s.
Those are not folks that we typically work with in our day-to-day operations over at the mobile overdose prevention site, but it still points to how pervasive and how wide scale and how every Manitoban is impacted.
Sunshine House will release an evaluation report on the mobile overdose prevention site later this week. Among its findings, it says no deaths were reported in its first year of operation. Businesses say the province's new security rebate doesn't offer enough help. Manitoba homeowners and business owners can get up to a $300 rebate towards things like security cameras and alarm systems. The Canadian Federation of Independent Business wants to meet with the Justice Minister to lobby for more. Soren Yu is policy analyst at CFIB.
$300 is definitely a drop in the bucket for a lot of businesses who are spending up to tens of thousands of dollars to up their security or to fix their windows and so on.
The program starts in June. The government has budgeted enough money to rebate more than 1,600 applicants. You can find more news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, on this wet morning, let's find out more about what's going on out there. Abby Adiyemi is in. This is kind of our first creak. That's the mic. Everything creaks in the rain. This is kind of our first morning where we've had kind of this spring, fresh rain going on.
Yes, we've been waiting for this for a while. Corey talked about it the other day, saying, hey, I'm waiting for that spring rain to come. And
this will be the real deal.
This is the real deal. I call it a transition. Starting off in Winnipeg, we're currently at 7 degrees. We see cloudy cover, a cloud cover overhead, and we're expecting showers throughout the day with temperatures getting to a high of 14 degrees. Now, don't forget the umbrellas or something to keep you dry today. Heading west to Brandon, it's 4 degrees and mostly cloudy conditions you're seeing. Today brings periods of rain starting this morning and then a continuation throughout the day with amounts totaling 10 to 15 millimeters. Now, the winds will be gusting from the east and you'd see a high of 8 degrees. Now, about the weather statement I talked about earlier for the northern part of the province, the rain is going to be kicking in and you'll be noticing it this morning already. And then there's a transition to snow by Wednesday. Now, areas like Lynn Lake and Thompson should brace for snow, while the southern part of that region, like the Pa and Norway House, are likely to see more rain. A total of about 30 to 50 millimeters of rain and snow over 3 days. Moving to Thompson, where it's 1 degree right now with mostly cloudy skies. The rain is expected to begin later in the afternoon with a high of 6 degrees. And tonight, the rain will then mix with snow, and we'll see an accumulation up to 5 millimeters of rain and about 2 centimeters of snow for Thompson. Further north in Churchill, it's minus 10 degrees, but guess what? The sun is already out up there in Churchill. It's sunny already. And then, as we see the sunny conditions in Churchill, there's going to be some clouds that will be crawling in later in the morning, and we'll be seeing periods of snow beginning before tomorrow morning. And the high for today is expected to reach 4 degrees. Now, down in Dauphin, it's 4 degrees with light rain. Today, we'll be bringing more of like rains. You'd see about 10 millimeters, and later for Dauphin there's going to be a mix of snow tonight, accumulation of about 10 to 15 millimeters. Now, Gimli is also at 4 degrees with mostly cloudy conditions. The Interlake region will see few showers ending this morning, and then some cloudy conditions would come in and a chance of more showers later in the day, and the highs for today will reach 11 degrees. But the rain is expected to mix with snow overnight, and you'll be seeing a total of 10 millimeters for Gimli. Steinbach is currently at 7 degrees. Finally, Maurice is at 9 with mostly cloudy conditions. The Pembina Valley region will see mainly cloudy skies, a chance of showers this morning, followed by rain beginning in the afternoon, and then you see a total of about 5 to 10 millimeters. But across the province, it's a wet one today. Rain in some areas, snow expected to begin in some areas tonight, and then it's going to last all the way till tomorrow morning with accumulation. However, for Winnipeg, we're experiencing early showers this morning with continuity all through the day, and we will be seeing a high of 14.
All right, thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Really small traffic note. It's out in NK. Southbound Rothesay, Donwood to Gilmore closed for sewer work. And Dan on a bike with his daily call. Good morning, Dan. Said a smooth ride today. Well, let's talk about the federal budget. In a moment, Crystal Lee's going to tell us all about it from a budget business perspective. You're already writing in. I asked you on Facebook whether you're going to be following the federal budget today and why. Diane Rogers says, I want help for renters and families. In 2007, with the economy booming, 2008 rents went from $450 to $1,100 in reno evictions, where fund companies bought apartment complexes for millions, and house rents went from $800 to $1,100 to $3,000. So Thompson, where Diane's writing from, said went from 15,000 people to 12,000. So she's just looking at the population and drawing a line and saying a lot of this is due to rent. So she's watching for rents in the budget. Judy Herskovich wants income assistance for Canadians with disabilities. And then we have a whole bunch of you that are cynical. John Van Ness saying it's all smoke and mirrors, Marcy. I have hope for these politicians that are supposed to serve us, but I'm getting impatient with all of what John calls the shenanigans. So let's talk budget with Crystal Lee Ramlakan, who is here from our business with the Business Report via Zoom. Good morning.
Hello, good morning, Marcy.
So the feds have been making a string of these housing announcements in an effort to address supply and affordability, as we just heard. That's a problem everywhere. You have some new data about what people are facing in terms of pricing, right?
Yeah, you know what? We talked a little bit about that yesterday as well. And then, today in the federal budget, it's obviously being tabled today. And sources tell CBC that the federal budget will include a tax increase on the richest Canadians. So it's not exactly clear what form that tax measure is going to take. But senior Liberal sources tell Radio Canada it will affect less than 1% of Canadians. And now the government, as you were just saying, has already made a series of pre-budget announcements. But, they add up to more than $38 billion in commitments over a number of years. So since much of that spending side of the budget is already public, the focus will likely be on how the government plans to pay for all of this. But, Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland has said that there won't be tax increases on the middle class. Now, the budget will also lay out how the government plans to spend billions of dollars to improve housing supply. That's what you're asking about there, And, it unveiled a 28-page housing plan last week, including plans to lease and build on underused public lands to make housing more available and affordable. And the strategy also promises a new mapping tool to track the inventory of public lands. So here's Mike Moffat, who is with the Smart Prosperity Institute, a national research network and policy think tank.
We're going to introduce various policies. We need to know kind of start date, end date, because this is a crisis. Costs and times and dates, I think, are going to be very important here.
So yes, the budget is going to be tabled around 4 p.m. Eastern. So I believe that's going to be 3 p.m. your time. You guys are earlier than us. And of course, CBC Radio and TV and the CBCnews.ca will be covering it all this afternoon.
And pardon me, Crystalie, for asking that specifics about housing. I'm on the right page here now. Turning to the auto sector this morning. So Tesla's planning to lay off more than 10% of its global workforce. What's behind that?
Well, the company is grappling with falling sales and an intensifying price war for electric vehicles. So Tesla is the most valuable automaker in the world and has about 140,000 employees. So about 14,000 workers could lose their jobs here. Sources say some staff in California and Texas have already been notified. And in a memo, CEO Elon Musk says, as we prepare the company for our next phase of growth, it is extremely important to look at every aspect of the company for cost reductions and increasing productivity. So shares of the company are down. Its stock has actually fallen about 31% so far this year. And on the other hand, though, some legacy automakers' shares have rallied. So that's because of a slow consumer transition away from these traditional internal combustion engine vehicles. For more on this, we spoke to Neil Hiscox, who is the president of Clarify Group, a Canadian-based automotive research and advisory firm.
One of the real issues that's hindering EV adoption is affordability. Until EVs are produced at the kind of scale and batteries are produced at the kind of scale that internal combustion engine vehicles are made, it's simply more expensive. They made a strategic decision to focus on the Cybertruck rather than to focus on bringing in a more affordable EV underneath the Model 3.
And energy giant BP is also cutting more than 10% of its workforce in its EV charging business after a bet on rapid growth in commercial EV fleets didn't pay off.
Your last story before we look at markets is for anyone with a drawer or a closet overflowing, I'm going to put my hand up here, with reusable shopping bags. There's going to be a place to bring them now?
Yes, and don't worry, me too. And I think a lot of other people. So Walmart is launching a national pilot program for customers to recycle their reusable shopping bags. People will be able to send in their extra or damaged blue Walmart bags to TerraCycle, who will either wash and donate them to charity partners, including Food Banks Canada, or recycle them. And recycled bags will be processed into raw materials that can be used for things like shipping pallets and outdoor furniture. Customers can sign up for the program on TerraCycle's website. The program provides a free shipping label, and bags can be sent in either in a box or a shipping envelope, but you need a minimum of 5 bags for a shipment.
No problem.
Yeah, exactly.
No problem.
Yes. But, if you're eager to recycle, you might want to sign up soon because the program says that enrollment limits will apply. So if the program is full, customers will then have to be added to a wait list.
What's going on in the markets then, Crystalie?
In Europe, markets are sharply lower as investors closely follow developments in the Middle East. So Germany, the UK, and France are all down. In Asia, markets are also lower. Japan, Shanghai, and Hong Kong are all down. Oil is down 20 cents to 85.21 US per barrel. Gold is up $4.40 to $2,387.50 US per ounce. And the dollar is down 0.01 of a cent to 72.52 cents US.
All right, take care. Talk to you tomorrow.
Okay, thanks, Marcy.
Crystalie Ramlichan with our business news. 13 minutes to 7 o'clock, and here's a tune this morning from Indigenous singer-songwriter Ethan Lyric. This is off his debut EP of the same name. It's called Saskatoon Berries.
From Kelowna to Saskatoon, you make my heart tune. Like the shores of PI, ripped apart and left to dry. And real estate properties dropping, and my money's split in two. One half's on the East Coast, the other one's watching you. From Winnipeg to anywhere better than this. Like road trips with gas stations and towns we missed. Oh, and real estate properties dropping, and my money's split in two. One half's on my hometown, the other one's watching you. Oh, and I don't know why I name these silly places off, 'cause I don't want to be anywhere if you're not there too. So from Kelowna to Saskatoon, you make my heart tune. Like the shores of PI, ripped apart and left to dry. And real estate properties dropping, and my money's split in two. One half's on the East Coast, the other one's watching you. One half's on my hometown, the other one's watching you.
That is out of Winnipeg. Ethan Lyric, tune's called Saskatoon Berries. It's 11 minutes to 7 o'clock on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Fresh, rainy morning out there. Cloudy sky, lots of puddles and more rain coming. Light rain right now, 7 degrees in the city of Winnipeg, so mild. And the showers continue with a high of 14. Tonight, about 10 to 20 millimeters of Winnipeg of rain. And then it's significant rain and snow on the way over the next 3 days. 20 to 40 millimeters of total precipitation in parts north, including the Paw, Snow Lake, Nelson House, Thompson, Leaf Rapids, and Cross Lake as well. Next on the show, it is budget day, and you are feeling cynical, listeners. You're writing in this morning. I was like, what are you watching for in the budget? Why are you watching the budget? Dennis Cron saying anything is better than mindless slogans that rhyme. Susan Rusk said there's no point. He's going to put our future generations into debt that they will never recover from. It won't affect his children. They will always have more than everyone else. Middle class will disappear. We will be left with the very poor and the very rich. It is already happening. So cynical about Trudeau there specifically. Well, despite how we're feeling this morning, or how a couple of the listeners are feeling this morning, we are going to hear what happens in this budget. Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland chose her new shoes yesterday as part of the long-standing pre-budget tradition occasion of sporting new footwear on the day. Over the last few weeks, the Liberals have not been shy. They've already been telling us some of what's included. But this afternoon, it will all come together. Ryan Tumulty is here. It's Tuesday morning. He is parliamentary reporter with the National Post, and he's here with our Ottawa report. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what do you think is the biggest challenge for the finance minister and how she crafts this budget?
Yeah, it's a bit of a tightrope here because she has to address the affordability issues that Canadians are facing, but she has to do that somehow without spending too much money, because if she spends too much money, interest rates will stay high and inflation might grow. She has to meet the demands of the NDP and the supply and confidence deal, some of which are not cheap. And she sort of has to manage all of this without, creating broader impacts in the Canadian economy.
It's interesting because all of what you said and all of what she's dancing around, and she's also facing this cynicism from people, as I alluded to there, right? Because the Liberals this is an important budget politically for them. Right?
Absolutely.
Let's talk today about what we understand about what's been announced. So most recently, Canadians were told to prepare for a tax increase. What do we know about that?
Yeah, very little at this point is what I would say. The finance minister has said many times in the last 3 weeks that she will not be raising taxes on the middle class. And the Liberals have generally defined the middle class as fairly broad. People that some people would consider wealthy are considered middle class by the Liberals. What has leaked out in the last day is that there's going to be some sort of tax increase on higher income Canadians. So we're talking about people potentially just the highest 1% of incomes in Canada. How she's exactly going to do that? Is she going to raise income taxes on those people? Is she going to set up new tax brackets? Is she going to use a wealth tax? Those are all open questions that I suppose we'll all find out in a few hours, but that's sort of where it sits right now.
What's the response been already from the Canadian business community to what we've heard will be in the budget?
Yeah, I would say the business community hasn't really responded to these tax increase rumors, but I would say that they have been cautioning the government against any kind of move like that. They have told the government that they think they should, focus on economic growth and competitiveness and productivity. They are arguing that the government, should restrain itself as much as possible. And certainly, they were not calling for any new tax increases.
What are then the political stakes for the Liberal government with this budget, as I alluded to, Ryan?
Yeah, they're enormous. The Conservatives have a pretty comfortable, pretty much holding 20-point lead in polls. That is a convincing majority government for the Conservatives if that holds till Election Day. So that is a big issue for them. I think, the Liberals only have so many opportunities to sort of turn that around. And Budget Day is a big one. Budget Day is a day that, as you've seen from your listeners, Canadians do pay attention to. It's something that maybe cuts through some of the other noise that we often see in Parliament that maybe, not everyone pays attention to outside of Ottawa. So I think this is a big day for them. They've got this budget. They've got one more budget next year to really attract the attention of Canadians. And so I think this is a big stakes budget for them.
This is a good question. I like this question because we rarely ask at the morning of the budget. But what are you going to be watching after the budget is delivered?
Yeah, obviously the opposition reaction is important here, right? So we are in a minority government. I suspect the NDP will vote for this budget. They've given no indication that they are demanding anything specific that the Liberals won't do or that they would walk away from the supply and confidence agreement. And frankly, the NDP are not incentivized to walk away from the supply and confidence agreement right now. It would hurt them considerably considering the lead that that the Conservatives have. I can almost guarantee you as well that the Conservatives are going to oppose this budget. They were talking yesterday about what they are expecting, and I really don't think that's the kind of budget that Chrystia Freeland is going to deliver. The Conservatives were talking about a budget that would have deep cuts in government spending, that would remove, obviously, the carbon tax, which they haven't done, things like that. I think what will be interesting to see is how the Conservatives respond to higher taxes on high-income individuals, if that's what's in this budget. Pierre Poilievre has run a very populist campaign that has been part of his rhetoric and his style from the beginning. And I honestly don't know, how well he would look opposing higher taxes on people who are making $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year.
Interesting questions, all of them. Thank you very much.
No problem.
That's Ryan Tumulty, parliamentary reporter for the National Post. So we'll see what comes up in the budget. So it is 3 o'clock our time, and that means it will preempt the top of Up to Speed. You can tune in for the CBC News special, Federal Budget 2024, complete coverage of the tabling of the budget, and you can check it out this afternoon on all of our platforms. You can listen on the CBC Listen app, and you can also check it out on CBC streaming this afternoon, or right here on 89.3 FM, 990 AM. And thanks for joining us this morning. We're already getting you weighing in on the budget on Facebook, but call us. Why are you watching the budget today? What are you going to be listening for as a Manitoban? And what are you hoping for? 788-3205, 788-3205. You can always tell the temperature of an economy on budget day. And you can always tell also by how much engagement we get, because in years where things are, maybe more affordable and things are kind of more stable, I tell you truly, no one writes in. And this morning, lots of people already weighing in, going to be watching this. How will they help your family? 788-3205. Right now, it is exactly 3 minutes to 7 o'clock, and Heather Wells is here with headlines.
Good morning. New data obtained by CBC is shedding light on the number and duration of rural emergency room closures. Last year, emergency departments across Manitoba experienced a total of 80,000 hours worth of disruptions. ERs in the Interlake area were hit hardest, largely because of staffing. We'll head to Arborg and hear from the mayor there. A Winnipeg mom says changes for students with disabilities may benefit families in the city's largest school division. The head of the Winnipeg School Division wants schools to prioritize including students with disabilities in traditional classrooms near their homes. We're going to hear from that mom in our next local news at 7:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
So light rain right now in Winnipeg, 7 degrees, mild when you walk out the door. Brandon's mostly cloudy and 4. Thompson's mostly cloudy, -1. Winnipeg, high 14 today. 60% chance these showers are going to continue for us. And then tonight, rain for sure, 10 to 20 millimeters expected. Up north, that special weather statement does include Thompson and areas around. And it's rain that's going to move into snow, change to snow. And over the next 3 days, it's slow moving. It's going to bring about 20 to 40 millimeters of total precipitation. In traffic on the morning drive, walk or roll, down on a bike, having a good morning out there, fresh and covered up. Watch the puddles, watch the cyclists, watch the pedestrians, all that jazz. Otherwise, pretty good. 788-3093 is where you can update us on anything you see on the commute. In the next hour after 7, a local Anishinaabe, a student has been lending himself to acting roles in local TV and movies. And boy, oh boy, now this 13-year-old has found another level of success. He's working on his first play through a program in Los Angeles. We're going to hear all about it. Stay tuned. Also, speaking of talented local people, a Winnipeg woman is following her dreams to become a Muay Thai world champion. She's got a really big match coming up this weekend in Calgary. We're going to hear from her. And then at 10 to 8, Heather's been mentioning this story in the news this morning about rural emergency departments. This is day 2 of our coverage. Yesterday, we looked at Eriksdale and what's happening there. Today, we're going to have a bit of a wider look as we lean into Arborg, but also into the data that talks about how many hours things were closed overall, ERs, in rural Manitoba. Josh Crabb recently joined us in studio, and that special report in full detail is coming up in the next hour of Information Radio. Stay with CBC.
Today on The Current.
I think you have to be really, really cautious to not catch any form of virus or bacteria.
I'm Rebecca Zandbergen. If you have cystic fibrosis in Canada, you can access life-changing medications. But in other parts of the world, it's not so simple. Coming up on The Current, how a woman in South Africa is trying to change that.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Marcia Young. It is Budget Day in Ottawa.
Millennials and Gen Z now make up the majority of Canada's labour force. They are our economy. So their success is going to be our success.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says this will be a budget that serves the young and the old. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland presents it in the House of Commons this afternoon. Janice McGregor is our Parliamentary Bureau reporter. And Janice, we have been hearing a lot about the new spending in pre-budget announcements.
That's right. And for the fourth time, Marcia, Chrystia Freeland's going to be wearing a new pair of black pumps as she lays out the federal books. Red, however, expected to be the dominant color on her balance sheet, not only because the Liberals' tour of pre-budget announcements featured $38 billion worth of spending to address urgent needs like the affordable housing shortage, but existing programs like old age security are also set to balloon over time. What today costs the federal coffers over $60 billion is set to spike to over $100 billion by the end of this decade. Canada may have avoided a serious post-COVID recession, but there's not enough economic growth on the horizon to cover something like that. Yesterday in question period, Conservative finance critic Jasraj Singh Holland said these latest Liberal announcements only make things worse.
Tomorrow's expensive photo op budget will only confirm why interest rates are staying higher for longer and why Canadians can't afford to eat, heat, and house themselves.
Radio-Canada is reporting that to pay for all this, Liberals will be returning to the play they ran after they were first elected, asking the wealthiest 1% to pay more tax. But keeping the deficit from rising, as Freeland has promised she'll do, is going to take more than that.
But this budget still needs to pass in a minority parliament.
That's right. And to stay in office long enough to implement things like their housing strategy, the Liberals are going to need to make sure the NDP can vote for this. Jagmeet Singh's been clear for months who he believes can afford to pay.
We do not want to see any pressure put on working class people, no increased taxes on working class people. We want to see big corporations start paying their fair share.
And in tough times, corporations are an easy target for voters angry about their grocery and cell phone bills. But economists aren't really sure that that's the best target for sustainable revenue over time.
All right. Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. And you can listen to our federal budget special this afternoon on CBC Radio or try something new. Listen on your CBC News app by going to your local tab. Budget coverage begins at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central. A sexual assault victim is speaking out now that his alleged attacker has been arrested 30 years later. The case involves a suspected serial child predator. It baffled investigators in southern Ontario for decades. Now the victim is sharing what he was told led to the breakthrough and a warning. This report from Thomas Daigle contains distressing details.
Police handled the situation very poorly in the beginning. They accused me of making up what happened to me.
He's 39 years old now, but was only 10 when he says he was sexually assaulted in a Brampton, Ontario park. Police finally made an arrest in the case just last month. Now the victim is speaking to CBC News, his identity covered by a publication ban, his words spoken here by a CBC producer.
I was shaking when I received the call. I felt overwhelmed with joy, then sadness as I started to recall the memories of that day.
In the mid-1990s, officers canvassed neighborhoods, searching for the unidentified attacker the media dubbed the Woodland Rapist. Police have now charged 64-year-old Richard Neal in connection with the Brampton assault and 2 other attacks on children decades ago. Neal is facing 20 counts, including kidnapping and sexual assault with a weapon. Leo Adler is his lawyer.
He is not guilty, and certainly the presumption of innocence applies.
Police have not said what led them to Neal. In the 90s, DNA evidence linked all 3 crime scenes, and the victim says he was told in March by a detective a relative of the accused recently submitted a DNA sample to an Ancestry-type website, and that led to the breakthrough in the cold case. Police now suspect there may be more victims. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Toronto.
The jury selection process in the Donald Trump hush money trial could last weeks. Today is only day 2. Yesterday, nearly 100 potential jurors were questioned in front of the former U.S. president. More than half were immediately dismissed. They said they could not be fair and impartial. Tension remains in the Middle East as Israel weighs its options. It has vowed to retaliate for Iran's weekend missile attack, but Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's allies are pressuring him to stop the crisis from escalating. Chris Brown has more from Jerusalem.
as he stood in front of an F-35 fighter at the Israeli military base targeted by a swarm of Iranian missiles over the weekend. The country's top military officer, Herzi Halevi, said Israel's response will be coming.
Iran will face the consequences for its actions.
Much of the world is urging Israel not to hit back and instead de-escalate. It was Israel's destruction of Iran's consulate in Damascus, Syria, and the killing of its senior military commanders that precipitated the military confrontation. And Iran's foreign minister, Hossein Amir Abdollahian, says if Israel keeps the cycle going, so will Iran. This time, Iran's response will not be minimal, but immediate and severe, he said. Former UK diplomat and intelligence head John Sars says with his offensive against Hamas in Gaza floundering, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu needs a military and political win, and attacking Iran, or more likely its proxy army Hezbollah in Lebanon, may provide it.
There is an attraction to Israel attacking Hezbollah now, and it also fits with Netanyahu's domestic political considerations.
U.S. President Joe Biden has said the United States does not want a wider war in the Middle East, but it's up to Israel to decide what to do next. Chris Brown, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Copenhagen's historic stock exchange building is on fire. Members of the Danish military are joining firefighting efforts. This building houses some of Denmark's most valuable works of art, but the 17th century building spire has already collapsed. It was built to look like the tails of 4 dragons entwined together and was an iconic part of Copenhagen's skyline. The nearby parliament has been partially evacuated. So far, there are no reports of any injuries. Another catastrophic wildfire season could be on the way. Last year, firefighters worked hours on end under physical and mental stress. So this year, mental health is becoming a bigger part of Alberta's preparations. Julia Wong explains.
New wildfire recruits work hard to get a small fire under control in Hinton, Alberta, about 300 kilometers west of Edmonton. It's part of their hands-on learning at the province's Wildfire Training Centre. But program director Nicole Galambo says they're focused on more than just the physical demands of the job.
The mental health hazards are equally important, and we need to make sure that we're trying to get that into our everyday conversation.
Wildfire seasons have been getting longer and more intense, says wildfire training specialist Kyle Fitzpatrick. And that means more conversations about the toll that all takes.
It requires us to be very clear about what fatigue and cumulative fatigue looks like, be really clear about some of the mental health issues that can come as a result of working extended shifts many days.
With the deaths of 8 people working on wildfires in this country last season, there's an openness in talking about the past, says Galambos.
So what can we learn from those really unfortunate deaths, fatalities, serious injuries, and empower folks to understand that their roles and their rights to refuse dangerous work.
This will be firefighter Aaron Kurt's first season on the job. He's getting ready for what the coming weeks could bring.
They've done a really good job of educating us as to what we're going to be expecting. So I think we're all prepared for that mentally.
Julia Wong, CBC News, Hinton, Alberta.
25 more recordings are being inducted into the U.S. Library of Congress, including this one.
It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine. Salt and pepper and Heavy D up in the limousine. Hanging pictures on my
The Notorious B.I.G.'s 1994 album Ready to Die is now considered American audio canon. So is Blondie's Parallel Lines, Green Day's Dookie, The Chicks, Wide Open Spaces. The Librarian of Congress says these works deserve to be preserved for all time based on their cultural, historical, or aesthetic importance.
time to get paid, blow up like the world trade. Born sinner, the opposite of a winner. Remember when I used to eat sardines for dinner? Peace to Ron G, Brucey B, Kid Capri.
That is World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Like you thought I would. Call a crib, same number, same hood. It's all good. And if you don't know, now you know, you know, you know.
Rainy start to the day here in downtown Winnipeg. Streets are wet with some puddles out there, and we've got more rain on the way. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us here on Information Radio on CBC. 7:10 a.m. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app or on YouTube. Morning, everybody. This hour on the program, we're going to celebrate local talent. First of all, a local Anishinaabe student has been lending himself to acting roles in local television and movies. Now he's working on his first play through a program in Los Angeles, but he's in studio to tell us all about it. We're also going to hear about a Winnipeg woman following her dreams to become a Muay Thai world champion. She has an important match coming up this weekend in the world of sport. It's happening in Calgary. And then at 10 to 8 to serious news here and to politics and to health. Some rural emergency departments are struggling to keep their doors open. Frequent and prolonged closures have impacted communities across Manitoba. Last year, ERs were shut down for tens of thousands of hours. This is day 2 of our coverage on ERs. Yesterday, we were looking at the community of Eriksdale. CBC's Josh Krebs has more details this morning overall about the data, and he's going to be looking at what's happening in Arborg. So stay tuned for that. Josh's report is on just before 8. Right now, Heather Wells joins us with an update on news otherwise. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg senior says he will never again buy travel insurance by clicking on a box on an airline's website. James Parker says he learned the hard way. Cancellation insurance comes with a lot of fine print. The 78-year-old and his wife were supposed to fly to Calgary to visit family in January. They had to cancel after their relative's home was flooded. We'll hear what happened next coming up. And businesses say the province's new security rebate doesn't offer enough help. Manitoba homeowners and business owners can get up to $300 to put towards things like security cameras, alarm systems, motion detectors. Well, the Canadian Federation of Independent Business wants to meet with Manitoba's Justice Minister to lobby for more. We'll hear about that in our next local news at 7:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Let's get into the details on this rainy day with Abby Adeyemi.
Good morning once again. Right now in Winnipeg, it's 6 degrees under cloudy skies. We are in for a wet day. Today calls for more of the clouds and showers expected throughout the day, and we will be expecting the wind to crawl in from the east. We're looking at a high of 14 degrees today, and for tonight, it's going to be another wet one. The rain is expected to intensify, and we'll see about 10 to 20 millimeters of rain with the wind shifting to a lighter breeze from the east before tomorrow morning. For the weather statement, we have rain turning to snow for the folks in the north, and we're expecting about 30 to 50 millimeters. Brandon is currently at 5 degrees. You'd see rain all day, heading to a high of 8. Thompson is at -1. Churchill is at -9. Dauphin is at 4 degrees with light rain. Gimli at 4. Steinbach at 7. And Maurice at 9. Winnipeg, we are at 6 degrees.
Traffic is good, actually. We haven't had any calls that are alerting us to anything major out there. We have had Dan, who calls daily about his bike ride, and he says things are looking good out there. So besides taking care that you don't splash pedestrians on a rainy morning like this, please update us if there's any issue on your commute. 788-3093. Well, what were you getting up to when you were a young teenager? Well, a young Anishinaabe student at 13 years old has already been acting on local television shows and on movies for a few years. He's one of the main voices on Chums. Now, this is a children's animated series that is launching soon on APTN. And this year, the Winnipeg teen I'm talking about was accepted into the Native Voices program that's run out of Los Angeles. Zachary Fontaine is going to write his first short play, and it will be performed and directed by Indigenous theater professionals. And you might have also caught Zachary on Little Bird or maybe on Acting Good. And Zachary's in studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
I love this. What do you love about acting?
It's fun. You get to meet new people all the time.
Yeah.
Also just kind of like a dream, you know?
Do you like all kinds of different formats? Because Acting Good is a funny show. Little Bird is not. More serious stuff. So do you like drama or comedy? What's your thing?
I really like it all so far.
Mhm.
I haven't really explored into anything else. Currently right now, I think I've done just serious and comedy and like a children's
Yeah.
show. So I think we're going to see what I like more.
Yeah.
But I definitely enjoy it all.
Did you know, like, you're 13 now, so were you like 5 and already acting in the middle of the living room for your mom and dad? Or like, when did you know this was something that you kind of really liked?
Well, it was actually 2 years ago.
Okay.
I got my first role. I auditioned for this one role. I got recasted. And I remember doing it. I was just like, oh my God, this is so fun.
I always thought it would be really fun as well. What's it like to be on a set?
At first, it can be nerve-wracking, maybe. But, like, there's all these people here to help you. They're so nice to work with, and just not that bad as you might think it might be.
How do you balance? It's a lot of work though. Like that, it's a lot of rehearsals and work. So how do you balance your homework and your other stuff that every 13-year-old's got to do?
Actually, the people who work for, like, the acting, like, in scheduling, they're actually quite generous or thinkative about, like, when they're gonna do it, because sometimes they'll do it on a weekend or at the end of the day, less than on school days.
Got
'Cause
it.
in total, like, if I had to think about these last 2 years, I think I've only missed, like, 2 days of school because of acting, but that was it.
Got it. So you're just a busy young man then. Really busy. So Chums, children's animated series. That's cool. What's your character?
I play a character. His name is Emery the Weaver. He's this kind of small guy. I like playing him.
No kidding. So do you, when you're voicing over Emery, you said, right? So when you're voicing him over, do you get to see him on a screen to see what he looks like? Or are you just working with what you're reading to voice him over?
I'm just working with what I have. I
Okay.
have a script in front of me that I read off. And
Yeah.
Just go from there.
Does he sound like you and me talking right now, Zachary?
Well, funny story. So when I did first do Emery the Weaver, I was just using my normal voice.
Yeah.
But my voice kind of changed over the years. So now I kind of had to try lifting my voice a little whenever I recorded.
This is exciting what you're about to do. I mentioned in the introduction about what's happening with the Los Angeles program. Congratulations on being accepted.
Thank you.
How excited are you about that?
Honestly, seems like a lot of fun. I'm excited. So
Can you tell us a little bit more about Native Voices and sort of what you'll specifically be doing? How long do you have to work on this play you're going to work on?
So we have 8 weeks.
Mhm.
The first 6 weeks are to learn the fundamentals, learning about characters, time and place, how to maybe write a script, stuff like that. And then the last 2 weeks, we actually start writing our scripts. And then the last week, we show off our scripts.
Have you written a play before?
Only one time I wrote like a small part in one for a school project last year.
Yeah.
And that was really it, but I just remember it being a lot of fun.
When I was 13, me and my cousins wrote a play called Born to Dance. It was absolutely terrible. So, but I still remember how awesome it was to just go through the process of trying to figure out how to write. It's very exciting. What are you most looking forward to in terms of the play itself? Like, do you know what you're going to write about already?
Not yet. No, it takes me actually a little while to settle on something I like. But once I got an idea, I'm gonna be ready and on the go. But nothing.
Not sure yet.
Yeah.
Well, you have 8 weeks. That's the whole point, right? Acting Good. I have to ask you about this. I'm a big fan of that show. Super fun. And of course, CBC's Rosanna's Your Child's in it, so I always love. She plays the chief there. If people haven't seen it, and Paul Roblaska is just it's a great show. What was your experiencing like being on set for that one?
It was a lot of fun. So the first one was like a smaller role. Great people to work with, it's a great experience, and also my dad's there, so
Yep.
that's like a up.
Yeah, absolutely, Tim. What advice do you have, Zachary, for other, there might be other Indigenous young people listening this morning who have dreams similar to yours. They're hearing about all these things you're doing and thinking, I wonder if I could do that. I'm not sure. What would you say?
Well, definitely don't be so hard on yourself. So if you mess up a line or so, try not to be like, oh, I messed that up so bad, crap. Just be more like, okay, maybe I can fix this, what can I do? Be less like, I messed that up so badly, oh my God, like, don't be so over-exaggerated about one small thing you maybe messed up.
I love that. I'm not going to be so hard about my Born to Dance play that I wrote years ago. Maybe it wasn't that bad. What has acting taught? Has acting taught you a lot of that? Perseverance and skills like not being so hard on yourself and things. Does that come from do you have to have that to be able to do this kind of work?
Yeah, it also taught me just how to be open to talk to someone. Don't be afraid to talk, because I'm kind of in the awkward stage of talking to people. So you always kind of had to push yourself to talk to people, boost up your confidence and all of that.
Well, I would have never known. It has been my pleasure talking to you this morning. Good luck with this program out of LA. Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is Zachary Fontaine. He's a 13-year-old Anishinaabe actor. He has just been accepted into Native Voices in Los Angeles for playwrights. And as mentioned, you might have seen him in various movies and television shows.
Earth Day at Fort White Alive is a magical time, and this one is for the birds. Let's celebrate not by looking at the earth below, but by looking up to the skies at our feathered friends who make this place so special. I'm Bryce Hoy. Join me for a virtual bird tour. Come to Fort White Alive's Earth Day celebration April 21st and follow the posted QR codes to learn some amazing bird facts. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more.
Shiny petal open up. Hold the water from my cup. Don't you wanna feel the sweetest touch again? It's never ending, never ending. All the ways you move around, satellite and solid ground. I never question what it's all about there. I'll be here for what it's worth. Don't waste time on insecure. Might need too much, but I need nothing to love you. To love you. To love you. I need nothing to love. Need nothing to love you. To love you. To love you. I need nothing to love. See, I can only give, I'm not taking. And there's so much fruit on the tree, baby. It's no lie, no crazy making. I just wanna love you. Couldn't you let me try? Ooh. All the ways you move around, satellite and solid ground. I never question what it's all about there. I'll be here for what it's worth. Don't waste time on insecure. Might need too much, but I need nothing to love you. To love you. To love you. I need nothing to love. Need nothing to love you. To love you. To love you. I need nothing to love.
Katie Tupper, tune called Need Nothing, and she's an artist out of Saskatoon. Right now, 7:23 a.m. Well, what do you need in the federal budget later today? Let's get to some of your comments. Judy Hershkovich says income assistance for Canadians with disabilities. Catherine Barron's writing into us at CBC. We have to change the way we do politics. This building up and tearing down. As a country, we should be able to pick 5 areas with common goals. For example, universal health care, dental care, affordable housing, education, etc., climate action. They should get their acts together. An example is these huge, stop at the huge cookie cutter housing developments. Catherine's opinion is saying where you need 2 cars. There are enough European countries that somehow manage without this. Ray Jones weighing in this morning. I'd like to hear what progress they're making with debt reduction. And finally, Ryan Harper, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of cynical comments coming in ahead of the budget. Ryan Harper saying, I can't wait to hear about all the rebates we'll be getting back after they gouge us even more. So everyone writing in about the budget. Budget comes out this afternoon. If you want to weigh in this morning on what you want to see in it, 788-3205. Love to get some calls this morning on the show. You're on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or on YouTube. 6 degrees, light rain. The commute's going fine. 788-3093 if you do have any updates otherwise. Well, let's update sports. Scott Regere's with us. Hello there.
Hey there, Marcy.
So the Jets play their ultimate game of the season tonight. What stands out ahead of the matchup with Seattle?
Well, to see if they can keep their momentum going after the past couple of very impressive performances, shutouts of two very good teams in Dallas and Colorado, puts the Jets in position where they only need 1 point in the standings in order to secure home ice. Of course, they'd love to do that this evening against Seattle. They certainly have the right guy in net for that. Connor Hellebuck will be tending the goal this evening. He is currently one of the favorites to win the Vezina, which would be the second of his career. This year, he also has a shot at winning something he has not won before, that being the Jennings Trophy, awarded to the goalie who allows the fewest goals against. As things stand, that would be Connor, although he says it really isn't an individual accolade.
I've always viewed that as kind of a team award, so and the guys worked hard in here for that. It would be awesome for them to be part of that. And I think LB is part of it just as much as I am. I don't know if we were to win it, if he would get his name on it. I don't think he would, but he definitely deserves to be on there.
Yeah, LB is Laurent Brossoit, and Hellebuck's quite right. Brossoit has not played enough games to qualify for that award. Still, Hellebuck and the rest of the team, for that matter, say they are more focused on playing and feeling well ahead of the playoffs. Puck drop tonight at 7 o'clock, and just before I leave the rink, kudos to Connor McDavid, not for the first time, managed his 100th assist in a win against San Jose. So McDavid joins Gretzky, Lemieux, and Orr as the only players that have ever done that.
Another month before we'll see WNBA players pass the ball around, but the league was front and center last night with lots of glamour, glitz, lights, and excitement.
Visual spectacle, yes. Caitlin Clark at the heart of it all, Marcy, the former Iowa star who became a household name during her record-breaking college career, taken first overall by Indiana last night. Going sixth, though, was Kingston, Ontario's Aaliyah Edwards. She went to Washington. This is the highest a Canadian's been selected in 18 years in the league, higher than the likes of Natalie Ochonwa or Kia Nurse.
I would say my message for the younger girls is just be confident, but know your worth. Coming from Canada, wasn't given as many opportunities as, say, my fellow draftees, but I made the best out of it, and I earned everything that I was given. So stay humble, but, let them know.
I absolutely love that. I'm going to teach my three boys that. I'm going to play that clip for them later today. Stay humble, but let them know. Edwards has been letting us know for a while now, Marcy, not just with the University of Connecticut, but as far back internationally as the Tokyo Olympics, where she was Canada's youngest player. This time around in Paris, though, she's going to be one of the team's leader trying to win that first ever medal for the country.
And on that topic, the Olympics, that is, the Olympic torch was lit this morning.
That's an actress dressed as a priestess offering up a symbolic prayer to Apollo in Olympia this morning. Traditionally, the ancient Greek god of sun obliges by then sending his beams down to ignite a silver torch with a little help from a parabolic mirror. Unfortunately, cloudy skies in the area this morning got in the way of tradition, so the priestess just went to a backup flame they'd set up for final rehearsal. Ironically, a few minutes later, the sun did come out. No matter, the torch on its way on its 5,000-kilometer relay to Paris. Let's hope the games themselves, now just 101 days away, come off a bit more seamlessly.
All right, thank you, Scott.
You betcha.
That is Scott Regera with Morning Sports. Well, we have one more sports story to share. This one you're going to have to wait for after the news for the details and the sound of it. But a Winnipegger is in the biggest Muay Thai kickboxing fight of her life this weekend in Calgary. CBC's Jim Agapito hung out with the White Tiger, Amber Berg, at her gym. Stay tuned to hear that story. We do have a traffic note for you developing here. We have an accident we've just learned about at Logan and Keewatin. So westbound Logan is blocked. Keewatin is backed up now with emergency response. So once again, this is an accident we've been hearing about at Logan and Keewatin. Westbound Logan's blocked and Keewatin is backed up with emergency response. So that is Jeff with a G giving us a call with that update. If that's cleared or if there's any change there or any other problems that have popped up elsewhere in the city or out on the highways, please use our commuter line at 788-3093. 788-3093 is where you can call. Now, that's a different number than the listener line. So on the listener line this morning, we're hoping you'll call and you'll let us know what you're watching for in the federal budget through your Manitoba lens. So what are you looking for? What are you hoping is going to be announced this afternoon? And that number is 788-3293. I'm Marcy Marcusa, May McKillop, Abby Adiyemi, and Brad Lilly's behind the glass this morning on the show of Information Radio. Thanks for being with us here on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app, but also on YouTube. And we hope you stay right here because your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is 6 degrees, and April showers this morning will turn into full-on rain tonight. A high this afternoon of 14, much cooler for the rest of the week. New data obtained by CBC is shedding light on the number and duration of rural ER closures. Last year, emergency departments across Manitoba experienced a total of 80,000 hours worth of disruptions. ERs in the Interlake were hit hardest, largely because of staffing. Peter Dewick is the mayor of Arborg. He's concerned about the emergency department in his town. It was closed for most of 2023.
It worries me a lot. We have an aging population, and so it's only a matter of when, not if, someone is going to need the ambulance, and it will be an hour out of town.
Arborg's ER closed indefinitely last November. The Interlake Eastern Regional Health Authority says it's not anticipated to reopen in the near future. You can hear more on this story coming up right here on Information Radio in the next half hour. A Winnipeg senior is questioning the value of buying flight cancellation insurance after his claim was denied. CBC I-Team's Caroline Bargout reports.
James Parker bought 2 WestJet tickets to Calgary last December so that he and his wife could visit relatives in January. A few weeks later, they discovered they couldn't stay at their accommodations because of a flood. The 78-year-old had purchased cancellation insurance through the WestJet website and thought he could get a refund. But it turned out it was not a covered reason listed on his policy.
I understand it's a business to make money, but I think there should be leeway to deal with changes or modifications that arise, because not everything can be written down, you know? I mean, it's life.
The Travel Health Insurance Association of Canada says coverage differs from policy to policy and that people should always read the fine print before traveling. Caroline Bargout, CBC News, Winnipeg.
It is Budget Day in Ottawa. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says this will be a budget that serves the young and the old.
Millennials and Gen Z now make up the majority of Canada's labour force. They are our economy. So their success is going to be our success.
Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland presents today's budget this afternoon in the House of Commons, and you can listen to our federal budget special today. Our coverage begins at 3 o'clock this afternoon Central Time. Hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. A Winnipeg mom says changes for students with disabilities may benefit families in the city's largest school division. The head of the Winnipeg School Division wants schools to prioritize including students with disabilities in traditional classrooms near their homes. That would be instead of sending students to specialized programs outside their catchment area. Rachel Smith wanted her 14-year-old son, who lives with cerebral palsy, to be in a classroom with his friends. She says she had to fight for that 8 years ago and hopes that will no longer be the case.
If a family wants to have their child at the catchment school, that is a possibility, but if a program is preferred, that is also a possibility. So to me, choice is what's being offered, and I think that's really what most parents want.
Superintendent Matt Henderson says if families want their child in a specialized program outside their area, they will be accommodated in consultation with school principals. Manitoba has seen an almost 5-fold increase in opioid-related deaths between 2019 and 2021. We told you about that study yesterday from the Canadian Medical Association Journal. Levi Foy is executive director at Sunshine House. It operates the province's only mobile overdose prevention site. Foy says for the most part the latest numbers aren't surprising, but one surprising finding was the highest number of people who died from opioid overdoses were men in their 30s.
Those are not folks that we typically work with in our day-to-day operations over at the mobile overdose prevention site, but it still points to how pervasive and how wide scale and how every Manitoban is impacted.
Sunshine House will release an evaluation report on the mobile overdose prevention site later this week. Among its findings, it says no deaths were reported in its first year of operating. Businesses appreciate the government's offer of a security rebate, but they say it's not enough. Manitoba homeowners and business owners can get up to $300 towards things like security cameras, alarm systems, and motion detectors. The Canadian Federation of Independent Business says that's a start. Soren Yu is a policy analyst at CFIB.
We definitely want to advocate for an expansion in the rebate program so that it includes reparative as well as proactive measures and to up the rebate amount.
Yu says her group hopes to meet with the Justice Minister to push for an expansion of the program. That program starts in June. Any security equipment purchase made after September 1st is eligible. The government has budgeted enough money, it says, to rebate more than 1,600 applicants. You can find more news. All you have to do is head to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, Abby, coming up, we've got a story about allergy at this time of year. I don't know if you can see through the glass. Can you see my arms?
I know it's your season already.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the inside of my elbows. I woke up this morning and I looked and I'm just like, what is going on? So I've got these sort of hive marks all over. And I realized I was doing some yard work and I brushed against my juniper tree.
Oh no.
And I'm allergic to that. So I get these little marks. But it is particularly a tough time of year for people because the dust is out there and coming up. So I have to say I'm grateful for the rain this morning, cleaning some of that up.
Some people will be thinking otherwise, like, oh, this rain is going to make all the dust on the roads just jump up and I'm going to inhale everything and I'm going to get sick.
Fair enough.
So a lot of people, it's the reversal. We want the rain, but some people go, oh, I need to protect myself.
Yeah, I find it helps me because it calms things down, but depends on what you're allergic to, obviously.
And then I ask my friends, I'm like, am I weird? I love the smell of, someone cutting their lawn, like the lawnmower going, the smell of that grass just in my nose. And then some people go, no, I'm allergic to that.
Well, it certainly does smell like spring even after that rain this morning. It's really nice. But right now, it's not coming down
let me just lift
the blind and have a look.
Yeah, I'm just doing that. I'm doing that right now. And we have wet streets. Just some showers, light rain. That's what we're seeing in the downtown. 6 degrees. We should expect showers throughout the day with a high of 14 degrees. Heavier rain is actually expected tonight. Heading to Brandon. Brandon is at 5 degrees. Also seeing light rain. And then this period of light rain is expected to bring about 10 to 15 millimeters for Brandon, and you'll be seeing a high of 8 degrees. The northern area today, you'll have that rain transitioning to snow by Wednesday, and Lynn Lake and Thompson should be expecting snow, while areas like the Par and Norway House will likely see more rain, totaling about 30 to 50 millimeters, and snow is expected over 3 days. Thompson is at -1 with mostly cloudy skies. Rain is expected late in the afternoon with a high of 6 degrees. Now, the rain later will mix with snow tonight, and you'll be seeing an accumulation of 5 millimeters of rain and 2 centimeters of snow for folks in Thompson. Churchill, good morning. You are currently at -9 on the mainly sunny skies, the only part of the province seeing the sun this morning, with highs reaching a +4. Now, later, there's going to be a transition. Periods of snow will crawl in, and then you'd see that into tomorrow morning. Dauphin is at 4 degrees with light rain. Periods of rain for you today also totaling 10 millimeters. And then it's going to be mixing with snow tonight, and which you should be seeing about 10 to 15 millimeters. For Gimli, good morning. You are at 4 with mostly cloudy conditions, and we see some showers ending now, and then some clouds will crawl in, and the showers will resume later, and we will be seeing a high of 11 degrees. The rain is expected to mix with snow overnight, totaling 10 to 20 millimeters. Steinbach is at 7, mostly cloudy. Showers also expected today with a high of 15 degrees. Now, tonight, the rain forecasted with amounts of 5 to 10 millimeters. And lastly, Morris is at 9 degrees with mostly cloudy conditions, and then a chance of showers later in the day, followed by rain in the afternoon, and you'll be seeing 10 at 5 to 10 millimeters. Overall, it's wet across the province. Some areas experiencing rain, others are seeing snow beginning tonight.
All right, thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Let's get into the morning commute. So if you're walking, wear good footwear, bring an umbrella. If you're waiting at the bus, make sure you bring an umbrella, good rain jacket as well. If you're on your bike, maybe some extra pants. It could get a little messy out there for a change after your commute. And if you are driving, don't splash anybody. Otherwise, out there, things are okay. We have two things to tell you about that may need updates. But Logan and Keewatin, a motor vehicle collision earlier, knocked down a traffic standard. So lights are operating, but the northbound curb lane's blocked. Use caution if you're going through. There's a signal crew that may just be arriving. They were on their way when we heard about this about 10 minutes ago. And there's also been a crash at Main Street in Chief Peguis. So this is northbound Main Street, apparently is down to one lane because of it. So that's Main Street at Chief Peguis Trail. 788-3093 if you have an update on the commute. Next up on CBC, for Winnipegger Amber the White Tiger Berg, Muay Thai kickboxing is way more than just a sport. It is her way of life.
Come on, Turkey! Hey! Let's get focused now! 1, 2, where's my fight? Almost there, Amber. Almost there. Let's go.
That's hearing a little bit of a fight. Amber Berg fighting in San Francisco last year. Now she's competing for the sport's biggest championship. She's going to fight in Calgary this weekend at the Muay Thai World Cup. She's fighting for bantamweight title. Bantamweight means she fights at a weight limit of 118 pounds. So what does this upcoming fight mean to Amber? CBC's Jim Agapito met up with her while she was training at Double Dragon Kickboxing Gym in Winnipeg.
This is the beginning of fight week. On Saturday, I'll be competing for the WBC Muay Thai Bantamweight title. It's a professional fight, and it's out in Calgary, and I'm pretty excited. This is the biggest title I could be competing for in Canada right now. This is kind of a newer opportunity for me. This is my 20th year that I've been training.
If you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
38.
What is it about Muay Thai that you love?
Well, I just always sort of knew I wanted to do it. It was always in the back of my head, something that I was driven to try out. And I just really enjoy pushing myself as far as I can. You just learn so much about yourself every time you come to train, every time you come to compete. There's nothing else like it for me. The experience of being in the ring, the experiences that come after the ring, before the ring, just everything about it. I love it.
What drove you to come to a Muay Thai gym and to start training fighting?
Well, me and my mom, we saw Double Dragon do an exhibition, and we just really liked it. We saw some women in there fighting. There was a coupon to come down, so we used it. It was on the back of the pamphlet, and yeah, we came down, we gave it a try. I got to train with my mom. That was a really cool time in our lives, and yeah, I just stuck with it ever since. Well, I was so shy when I was younger, like cripplingly shy. So it was a challenge to get in here. It helped that I had my mom with me, and every day I'd walk up to the doors and I was scared for probably about 5 years. But when you come here, and also just insecurities that like a young woman would have, but as soon as you're punching and kicking and trying to keep up with class, you're not worried about what you look like or anything like that. You're just so focused on the task at hand. There's so many wonderful people here. It's a really great atmosphere. There's a great team. My coach is just amazing.
You know, you think combat sport, sometimes people might think that it's a male-dominated sport.
Well, when I first started, there was a few women training here that just really inspired me. And there was one fighter in particular, and I remember my coach saying, "Oh, this is one of my top fighters." And I'd watch her train. And then one day, many years later, somebody came into the gym, and my coach introduced me, and he's like, "She's one of my top fighters." I was like, "Wow, that's amazing." And over the years, we've had a really great feminine influence in the gym, and we work together, and it's one of the best things in my life, just that the women in the gym, really, and the women that you meet going out and competing, and the other coaches out there. And yeah, women are doing great things in the sport for sure. Well, I found out about the fight over the Christmas holidays, so I've been going pretty hard since January. I would say the last 6 weeks are always pretty intense, though, leading up to the fight. And the last few weeks in particular, I have to be really careful with what I'm eating, because any weight you put on, you got to take it off, and that's a lot on the body.
And describe for us what training's been like ramping up for the last 6 weeks.
So a lot of pad work, a lot of bag work, sparring. The last couple of weeks it's been sprinting and like plyometrics and weights, running, and so just so much.
24/7 basically training?
Yes, basically.
How do you keep your mental focus during that?
My coach is a big help, he's always, and he just says, think like a champion, train like a champion, and you'll be a champion. And my family really helps, because I have a 4-year-old, and so if I start to waver mentally, then it all snowballs from there. So you really have to just remain strong and focused.
How do you balance that, having a life and being a fighter?
It's my life. So you just incorporate everything into it. For many years, everything's kind of revolved around fighting and training. Having a family and a child adds to your plate for sure, but it's a privilege to be able to just train together. And I feel like we've become really strong as a family, just being here all the time and being together, and it's challenging but also amazing. It sounds so cliche, but just feeling alive. You get up there and you just have never felt so alive in that experience. One really big thing is I want to bring it back for my gym. I want to win it for my coach and for my gym, for everything they've put into me. It's been a lifelong journey. It would just feel so good to have that award at the end.
Yeah, my name is Jarek Hodge. I'm the founder and the chief instructor of Double Dragon Kickboxing in Winnipeg. Amber's been with me for over 20 years, and I actually used to babysit Amber. She decided to do kickboxing, and the rest is history. And she's the one that stepped up, so I'm proud of her. She has a bunch of titles already, so she's been there. She knows what she's doing. I can't wait sharing the ring with another person. So
you get excitement out of it.
Yep, I do, because the thing is, the other fighter, our last fight, the interviewer asked her about who's the person she's fighting. She said some girl from Winnipeg. So we're going to make sure when we left there, she's going to remember her name, Amber, the White Tiger Bird.
Amber the White Tiger Berg, she is going to be competing this weekend. CBC's Jim Agapito out at Double Dragon Kickboxing. Also there speaking with Muay Thai head coach Jarek Hodge. Before that, of course, you did hear from Amber. So the fight this weekend for the Thai Bantamweight title is in Calgary. It's at the Muay Thai World Cup. And for more information on her journey, please visit the MuayThaiWorldCup.com website. That fight is April 12th in Calgary.
The sandwich board. It's one of the oldest forms of advertising. Storekeepers love them. Cities try to ban them. And in the movie Die Hard with a Vengeance, a sandwich board attracts a lot of attention.
You are about to have a very bad day. Tell me about it.
Sandwich board advertising on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
Small correction, I just misspoke there. This weekend, Amber's fight is in Calgary, April 20th. I think I said April 12th there, April 20th. Light rain falling, 6 degrees in Winnipeg right now, heading for a high of 14. More showers expected, especially tonight, with rain amounts of 10 to 20 millimeters in Winnipeg. Well, next on CBC's Information Radio, we continue our look at rural emergency rooms today. New numbers obtained and analyzed by CBC News are highlighting a problem in some of Manitoba's rural emergency departments. They are supposed to be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But last year, ERs across Manitoba were closed a lot. And as you've been hearing in the news, if you add it all up, they were closed for tens of thousands of hours. It has emergency physicians and community members raising alarm bells. One expert is questioning what the future holds for Manitoba's rural ERs. The CBC's Josh Crabb traveled to Arborg in Manitoba's Interlake. Their ER is closed indefinitely. And Josh told me about his story yesterday. We spoke in detail after the show.
Good morning.
So what are people saying about that closure?
Well, they're not happy about it like many other small communities, and they were eager to talk. Now, sometimes when you roll into a small community with a television camera, people can be shy, but not here. Residents were literally lined up on the sidewalk at one point to speak with us. So just to give you a little bit of a background, Arborg is quite a bustling community. We were there on a warm day in late March, and people were busy running errands, milling about on the street, walking into the bakery, the grocery store, the post office. The community is home to about 1,300 people. Mom of two, Caitlin Chorney, who lives just west of Arborg, stopped to speak with us. She had many thoughts on the lack of emergency services.
Tell us about the ER services here.
There is none. I've had to go to Gimli, I've had to go to Stonewall. I personally had to go to Selkirk. I've had people that had to go all the way to Children's because even though they went here, there was no service.
What do we know about how long Arborg's ER has been closed?
Data from a Freedom of Information request analyzed by CBC News shows the number and duration of emergency department closures across Manitoba in 2023. Arborg's ER was closed during our visit, as it was for most of 2023. Now, according to the data we obtained, it shut down indefinitely November 6th after closing 72 times before that. It was closed for the equivalent of 332 days in 2023. Arborg Mayor Peter Duick is concerned about the impact of ER closures in his town. He says it means people have to drive 30 minutes to Gimli or an hour to Selkirk to get emergency care. He lives right across the street from the ER and is reminded of the closure every day.
If you zoom in on the sign there, you'll see emergency services not available today. That sign seems to be out there almost 30 days every month. We have just north of town about 400 to 500 manufacturing jobs, and it would be nice to have emergency services. I mean, these manufacturing jobs, people can get just a cut in the finger that needs 3 stitches. You don't want to go to Selkirk for 3 stitches.
Now, we do know from this data that Arborg is not the only community dealing with this. So if we can kind of look at that, what else does the data tell us?
It shows Arborg had the second longest total rural ER closure in Manitoba, next to Leaf Rapids, which didn't take patients last year at all after closing indefinitely in 2022. Carberry's ER shut down indefinitely last summer, followed by the ERs in Morris and Melita. Other communities grappled with frequent intermittent closures but remain open. Across the province, there were more than 80,000 hours, or the equivalent of more than 3,300 days worth of closures. The regional health authorities say it's due to staffing, which won't be a surprise to many of our listeners. Dr. Nichelle Desolé is a family and emergency physician in Neepawa. She was surprised to hear the numbers and says it has a real impact on patients.
I'm shocked that the number is that high when you put it in those terms, and the number of days and the number of hours, because that's 80,000 hours or 3,000 days that rural patients and their families are potentially living in uncertainty because they know that, they might have a complicated cardiac history. They might have heart problems where they're reliant on expedient medical care. And when their local emergency room is closed, I'm sure it's stressful to think, what if I'm feeling unwell this weekend? Where am I going to go?
So to the response now, what are health officials saying about the closure?
The Interlake Eastern Regional Health Authority's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Charles Penner, says Arborg's hospital remains open for inpatient care, and he says hours at the primary care clinic have been extended. If people are having a health emergency, they should call 911 to be taken to a different ER. Penner says ER services there in Arborg are not expected to resume in the near future. Dr. Alex Chachanoff is an emergency physician and past president of the Canadian Association of Emergency Physicians.
It's also reflective of a growing sort of existential problem around the country with the ERs. That's been felt to be the way you need to have like a safe town is to have, a hospital and an ER in case of emergency. And it's put governments in a difficult position where they feel a need to support sometimes more ERs than they have the capacity to.
Now, do we know what the Manitoba government plans to do about the ERs that have been closed so frequently or for the prolonged periods of time?
In a phone interview with CBC last week, Health Minister Uzoma Asseguera says the government is committed to rural health, but didn't specify exactly what the future holds for rural ERs that have closed frequently or indefinitely. We did hear that promise about the one in Ericsdale. Of course, they plan to put some money in there to build a new ER. Chachanoff says an ER that is open off and on isn't really an ER. While many towns feel they need one to be safe, Chachanov says it's not always possible to have one. He argues patients can get better care if small ERs were to be closed in favor of more dependable emergency rooms in larger centers.
But if you're in a quite small community that's 80 kilometers away from a bigger center, and you can have a well-trained paramedic around to do stabilization and transport you, and that bigger emergency department is better trained, they have better doctors and nurses, they have better CT scanners. If you have a heart attack, under which system are you going to get better service? And you have to convince the townspeople, who will be very suspicious, that their teeny little ER that's not open all the time isn't necessarily serving their needs.
Chachanov says governments of all stripes have been unwilling to close ERs with chronic disruptions because it's unpopular politically. He says making changes requires convincing people a new model can work better, but he says you have to deliver on that model, because if it doesn't work out, changes won't be accepted by communities.
Josh, thank you very much for this report.
You're welcome.
Josh Crabb, reporter with CBC Manitoba. You can read more on his story on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba. Now, if you're leaning into this and you live in a rural area, specifically a rural or remote area, especially if you're in an area where you've had challenges with your ER being open and closed, or I guess I should just correctly say closed, what do you think the way forward is? There are many models that we could look to try and solve this issue on a more consistent basis. Obviously, the best case scenario is that we can afford all the hospitals and ERs and everything's open. But if not, would a nurse practitioner work? Would that idea of a paramedic work? What model would you like to see where you live? You can always weigh in on the listener line, 788-3205. Well, I'm not rewarding you for calling, but we do have some tickets to give away right now. I just noted that it's 5 minutes to 8 o'clock, so we just got a couple minutes here to let you know about a ticket giveaway. It's for something happening tonight, so we're hoping you can call in and win. Call the live line. There's an MCO, Manitoba Chamber Orchestra concert tonight at 7:30, and if you want to go, cellist Desiree Abbey is going to be performing. Conductor Jean-Marie Zutoni is going to be conducting. The first 3 callers on the live line will win tickets to the MCO concert. That's what we have. The first caller on the live line, we have 3 tickets. So 3 tickets to give away to MCO's show tonight, 7800893. 7800893. That's the in-town number. So if you want to give us a call, I see May looking at the phones. That means that we've already got a winner. So 7800893. And good luck. Enjoy tonight. Should be a very nice night to be inside at a beautiful concert as it is raining in Winnipeg. Light rain continues, 6 degrees. Our high today, 14. Tonight, about 10 to 20 millimeters expected. This is part of a system that is going to be slow moving through the province. It's going to last 3 days. Rain to the south, rain turning to snow for the north. That's prompted a special weather statement for Gillam, the Paw, Wanless, Cranberry Portage, Thompson, Cross Lake, Lynn Lake, Leaf Rapids, and Puckatawagan. So your amount's 20 to 40 millimeters of total precipitation over the next 3 days. So it's a wet one. We'll get into the traffic details in a moment. Right now, headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, for the 3rd time in 6 months, a Winnipeg sports memorabilia shop has been broken into. Joe Daly's Sports and Framing has been open on St. Mary's Road for 35 years, and it's just been broken into again. His son, Travis, is frustrated and wonders whether it's worth carrying on. A Winnipeg senior says he will never again buy travel insurance by clicking a box on an airline's website. James Parker says he learned the hard way. Cancellation insurance comes with a lot of fine print. We'll hear that story and more in our next local news at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Traffic-wise then, Logan and Keewatin, we don't have an update on this yet, so update us if it needs. But we understand a motor vehicle has collision is knocked on as traffic standard. Lights will continue to operate there, but the northbound curb lane's blocked. So if that's now clear, let us know. 788-3093. 788-3093. Also, there had been a previous car crash earlier, about half an hour ago, Main Street at Chief Peguis Trail. So Main Street northbound at that intersection had been down to 1 lane. That also might be improved. Please update us on the traffic line, 788-3093. Coming up after 8 o'clock, speaking of updates, yesterday on the show we were talking about coverage after you've had hip and knee replacement for physio. And Budget 2024 does provide provincial coverage, but there's been some confusion out there. Some patients have told CBC they paid out of pocket for some of their sessions. So we have some updates and some feedback to a story we had on yesterday, including we will hear from the health minister. So that's coming up after 8. Also after 8 o'clock on Information Radio, sneezing and watery eyes. They could be signs that seasonal allergies are affecting you. We're going to talk with an allergist about what's in the air for this spring. Stay tuned. I'm Marcy Marcus. The World Report is next.
On Cue with Tom Power.
When Derek Whibley started writing the new Sum 41 album Heaven and Hell, he didn't know it would be their last. He'll tell you how the process of writing helped him reach a decision he's been debating for years, and how do you call your band and tell them it's over.
Done with lies and all that you gotta say.
That's coming up on Cue, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current.
I'm Rebecca Zandbergen. If you have cystic fibrosis in Canada, you can access life-changing medications. But in other parts of the world, it's not so simple. Coming up on The Current, how a woman in South Africa is trying to change that.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland tables her fourth federal budget today. It will lay out the government's plan to bolster a sluggish Canadian economy. Inflation is a persistent problem, and the latest Consumer Price Index, or CPI, shows that it's not changing. Inflation was up 2.9% in March on a year-over-year basis. That is up from 2.8% in February. Peter Armstrong has more.
The inflation numbers this morning could have really cast a shadow over this afternoon's budget in Ottawa. If price growth had really picked up speed in March, that would have prompted a whole new conversation about interest rates and about the prolonging of any potential interest rate cuts. But it didn't. And in a way, I think these numbers kind of thread a needle of sorts. Yes, the headline number is up, but it's up only slightly, driven by really predictable factors, gasoline and shelter costs mostly. The core measures that the Bank of Canada really focuses on, they all saw small doses of progress. So now focus can pivot to the federal budget itself and whether the new spending being announced this afternoon might accelerate inflationary pressures. But the basic assumptions in that budget, that CPI will get to 2.5% by the end of this year and all the way back to 2% by next year, those remain very firmly intact. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Ottawa.
Today's budget includes more money for national defense. The Liberal government outlined a new defense policy last week. Now the budget will show us how quickly that will be funded. As Murray Brewster tells us, it may not be enough to reassure anxious allies or satisfy military critics.
Your entire policy update is aspirational. It's full of exploring options. It's full of reaffirming existing commitments.
Conservative MP Pat Kelly giving voice to the skeptics of the Liberal government's new defence policy presented last week with much fanfare. We'll get a sense today how much of that policy is aspirational and how much is real. Bill Blair is the Defence Minister.
In Canada, we do not publish our aspirations. We publish our funded plans. And this document talks about the money that we'll be committing in this upcoming budget.
The policy committed to, among other things, buying airborne early warning planes to watch the country's far north for missile attacks and to buy long-range missiles for the Army. While the Defense Department is getting more money overall, it is going through an internal budget-cutting exercise to help pay for these new capabilities. General Wayne Eyre, the country's top military commander, was asked how all of this is going to shake out.
We don't know yet. And so last fall, we had those cuts, and the team has gone through a tremendous amount of painful work to determine where those would be applied.
The budget is also expected to contain money for Ukraine as part of the security framework agreement signed by the two nations last winter. Although separate from the defense appropriation, Canada has committed thus far over $4 billion in military aid to the embattled Eastern European nation, much of it still being delivered. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
You can listen to our federal budget special this afternoon on CBC Radio 1 or try something new. Listen on your CBC News app by going to your local tab. Budget coverage begins at 3 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Pacific. It is day 2 of jury selection in the Donald Trump hush money case. And if yesterday's proceedings are any indication of what is to come, the process could take weeks. The CBC's Chris Reyes joins me now from outside the courthouse in Manhattan. And Chris, given what we have seen develop inside the courtroom, what are we expecting today?
Well, when court resumes this morning, potential jurors will once again be called into that courtroom with Donald Trump. 96 people were brought in yesterday, but more than half raised their hands when asked if they felt they couldn't be fair or impartial, and they were dismissed, adding to the signs that this process will be a long one. The judge in the case has granted more time for attorneys to question the potential jurors. One of Trump's lawyers, Will Scharf, gave his assessment of what he thinks will be the challenge in getting to that 12 jurors out of a pool of hundreds.
When you've had wall-to-wall media coverage in, frankly, the media capital of the world, it's going to be very tough to find people who can come into the courtroom without preconceived biases about the evidence, about the law, who will accept the judge's instructions and who will view the facts dispassionately.
Once the jury is finalized, they will take an oath to be fair and impartial, and the trial will begin, and Trump will be in court every day for it.
Now, the judge has made some rulings when it comes to what the jury will get to see and hear in this case. What can you tell us?
That's right. The judge ruled yesterday that the infamous Access Hollywood tape, where Trump could be heard bragging about grabbing women's genitals, can be discussed but not played for the jury. The jury will also not get to hear a video deposition from the E. Jean Carroll case, the writer who recently won her civil defamation and sexual assault lawsuit against Trump. But it is expected that this trial will resurface many other details in Trump's history that go back to these alleged affairs from the early 2000s that are at the heart of this case.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Chris Reyes in Manhattan. Thunder Bay's police service is vowing to rebuild trust within the community. Its former police chief was arrested last week, and several officers are being investigated for misconduct. As Michelle Allen reports, critics say not enough is being done to clean up the ranks.
So when we talk about trust or building trust or having a relationship, I can't ask anybody to have trust in me. I can only show them that they can.
Thunder Bay's current police chief, Darcy Fleury, says he's committed to rebuilding trust. It's a tall order following the arrest of the force's former chief, Sylvie Hoth, on Friday. She's facing charges of obstruction and breach of trust.
Very little has actually changed.
Jamie Cunningham is a former civilian member of the Thunder Bay Police. She says she's not impressed with how the force is handling this.
There's still a lot of deflection, still a lot of unanswered questions, and an inability to admit wrongdoing and to build relationships with the people who have been harmed.
Cunningham says she wants to see police work harder to punish bad cops and provide more support for victims.
I hope for more arrests in the near future.
Allison Scott says she worked for the Thunder Bay Police for 18 years. She says a new board and new chief isn't enough to fix the force's issues.
There's no accountability in policing. If you just look at the grievance arbitration process, there's no accountability at all, especially in policing.
The Ontario Provincial Police says that former Chief Hoth has been released from custody. She'll be back in court in Thunder Bay next month. Michelle Allen, CBC News, Thunder Bay.
British MPs are debating one of the world's toughest anti-tobacco bills. It would apply to Generation Alpha, anyone born after 2009. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak wants to make it the first smoke-free generation. If his bill passes, they will be banned from buying cigarettes. The sale of tobacco products would be illegal, but the act of smoking would not be outlawed. A 92-year-old man in Newfoundland says he finally got his money back. He was charged more than $1,000 for commemorative coins he didn't want. But once he spoke to CBC News, the company gave him a refund. Ariana Kelland has the latest from St. John's.
I will not deal with the Bradford Exchange again.
92-year-old Lloyd Walker has his money back. Walker placed an order last July with the Bradford Exchange, an American company with an office in this country. It's been selling collectibles, trinkets, and jewelry since the 1970s. Walker thought he was ordering a single coin, but instead says he was unwittingly enrolled in a monthly program that saw more than $1,000 charged to his credit card. Walker says after the story aired, 2 representatives from the company called.
I said there was nothing wrong with the coins. I said it was the sleeving way you went about tricking me into more coins.
The Bradford Exchange has stressed that its subscription and return policies are clear. Coins can be returned for money back at any time. Julia Lewis is interim CEO at the Better Business Bureau for the Atlantic region. She says, in general, complaints over automatic subscriptions or programs are common.
Often enough for us to create publications and tips, creating awareness for what consumers should be looking for when they're engaging with subscription service.
Back in St. John's, even with his money back, Walker says he's still not happy it happened at all. Ariana Kelland, CBC News, St. John's.
The Black Entertainment Television Experience is back after a 5-year hiatus.
Dollars, I like diamonds, I like stunning, I like shining, I like $1 million.
Cardi B, Queen Latifah, and The Roots will headline concerts to celebrate the return of the BET Experience. The shows will take place in Los Angeles over 2 days, and it all leads up to the BET Awards on June 30th in Los Angeles. The awards celebrate Black excellence in music, film, sports, and philanthropy. And that is World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us. We've got light rain falling across many parts of the province, including parts of Winnipeg this morning, and it's mild. Thanks for joining us. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube on CBC, and this half hour on the show. Well, maybe that rain is going to settle down all of the pollen out there. It is a tough time of year. You might be feeling groggy. You might have hives. Your eyes might be watering. Maybe you're a sneezer. Those people who live with allergies feel it all. This half hour, we're going to talk to a doctor and get some ideas about managing seasonal allergies. The timing of these seasons have shifted in Manitoba over recent years, and that means that you might be having a longer season of struggle. So stay tuned. We'll have that conversation. In addition, this half hour, a bit of an update from overnight. We got listener lines and reaction and heard from the health minister on a story we had on at this time yesterday. Stay tuned. So we'll get to that straight away. But not before we hear from Heather Wells, who's here with news headlines on your Tuesday morning.
Good morning. Well, new data obtained by CBC is shedding light on the number and duration of rural ER closures. Last year, emergency departments across Manitoba experienced a total of 80,000 hours worth of disruption. The Interlake region was hardest hit, largely because of staffing. We're going to take you to Arborg coming up at 8:30. And for the third time in 6 months, a Winnipeg sports memorabilia shop has been broken into. Joe Daly Sports and Framing has been open on St. Mary's Road for 35 years. It was just broken into again, and his son, Travis, is frustrated and wonders whether it's worth carrying on. We'll hear from Travis Daly in our next local news at 8:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather. Well, let's get into what's going on in the weather forecast. Abby?
Right now, it's 7 degrees under cloudy skies with some showers in the city. We're heading to a high of 14 degrees, and the rain is intensifying tonight. We should be seeing 10 to 20 millimeters on the ground. Tomorrow, lingering rain in the morning, and then it's going to clear up in the afternoon. Brandon is at 5 degrees now with some rain. Thompson is at -1, rain turning to snow later. Churchill is at -6, sunny, and then there's going to be a transition to snow later on. Duffin and Gimli both at 4 degrees, cloudy, rain turning into snow also later in the day. And Steinbach is at 8 degrees with some showers.
Let's get into the commute, and then we also have a winner announced for something we gave away before 8. So when it comes to the commute, Logan and Keewatin, we still understand that the traffic standard's down, but lights do continue to operate. You might still be a little bit backed up in the northbound curb lane, so use caution there. Northbound Main at Chief Peguis, down to 1 lane there. There'd been an earlier crash, and this is new just in Granite Way near the Granite Curling Club is backed up. 2 large concrete trucks have started some work there, so that's slowing traffic both east and west. If you want to reach us on the traffic line, you can 883093. Now, I mentioned the concert announcement that we want to congratulate someone for winning tickets to. Just before 8 o'clock, we gave away 3 tickets to the MCO concert tonight at Crescent Fort Rouge United Church. Congratulations to Alice Oswald, who was fast calling us at CBC and won the tickets. Well, just ahead of our conversation about seasonal allergies here, I want to update briefly a story we had on yesterday at this time. We were talking about the recovery period and physio coverage after knee and hip replacement. Now, knee replacement specifically was a topic for my guest. My guest was Claudia Garcia de la Huerta, 50 years old. She'd been living with severe arthritis in both knees for 12 years. She says she was surprised when her physio sessions went from being covered by the Manitoba government to then a session not being covered at all. She had one knee replacement in 2022 and the other this year, just this past February.
When I went to go to my first appointment, they said to me, we're kind of in limbo because the program has ended and there's nothing happening. So I managed to get in 5 sessions. And I went for the 6th. And when I went to leave, they said, hey, you owe money. We no longer have access to this program. They've canceled it. So I had to pay. And physio's not cheap. It's anywhere from $75 to $100, depending on where you go. Mine is $86. So I had to pay.
So previously, under the PC government, the program she's referring to was coverage for 6 individual sessions or 10 group sessions. Now, we also got this call after Claudia was on the air.
Hi, Marcy. It's Marlene Parnell calling. I'm 78 years old and just had surgery, a knee replacement in February. I, too, like your guest, was in the middle of my group session. I had 10 sessions, and I had 9, and March 31st came, and they were in limbo as to whether it was going to be continued. But I was not charged for my 10th one, which came after the April 1st budget when they were sort of indecisive about whether that program was still continuing to be funded. Thank you for having the guest, but there's still lots of information that people with surgeries need to know. Lots don't know about that program and its existence, and I have to say, as much as the WRHA tries to get it out there, there aren't the sessions like there were in 2014 when I had my first knee surgery, and of course then they had outpatient doing the physio, and so they could give you choices where to go. Now, the group was so good then, so I looked for a group, and honestly, I couldn't find a place. So I had to phone around, and unfortunately, the WRHA, because the physios are private, they cannot tell you. They tell you to phone around. So I had to make many phone calls to find a group session. The one I go to is a Portage Elite Sports and Injury Clinic, and it's amazing, twice a week. And now it has run out, but my group session is only $35 a session. And so I'm continuing. I'm on my 14th session already. I'm doing really well, but I just, the physio, as your guest said, is so imperative to your recovery. I'm Marlene Parnell, and thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you for reacting to the story and our coverage of the issue. Now, overnight, the health minister reached out to CBC.
Hi, this is Uzoma Asaguera, Minister for Health, Seniors, and Long-Term Care. I was concerned to hear that someone was charged for post-op physio care. This is something that never should have happened. This program is ongoing for Manitobans, and anyone who has had to pay out of pocket will be immediately reimbursed. Staff in my office have reached out to everyone who's come to us with questions about coverage for their post-surgical care, and I encourage anyone who has questions to reach out to my office as soon as you can.
So that is right from the health minister, Uzoma Asaguera, reaching out to CBC and confirming what we had heard previously from a provincial spokesperson saying that Budget 2024 provides provincial coverage of post-surgical hip and knee replacement physiotherapy. So if you do need more detail, reach out. It is 8:18 right now on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or on YouTube. Thanks so much for listening, and also for all the listener lines that come in. Really always love hearing from you. Next on the show, speaking of listener engagement, today on Radio Noon, the call-in's going to be all about allergies because 'tis the season. Let's set that up with a conversation this morning. The signs of spring are upon us. Prairie crocus are sprouting, robins singing. Your eyes, though, may be watering. You might be feeling stuffy. And if you're me, you're just breaking out in strange hives all over the place. If you suffer from seasonal allergies, then you know that the season started. Dr. Nestor Cisneros is with us, an allergist and a clinical immunologist with the Children's Hospital, and has been patiently waiting via Zoom for our conversation. Good morning to you. Oh, I'm just having trouble hearing the doctor. We're having some challenge hearing the doctor here. We have plenty of time for a conversation, so we're going to solve our technical problems, and then we're going to be connecting and talking about allergy season. I have time in the meantime to remind you that if you are going to call in today on the conversation on seasonal allergies for the call-in portion of Radio Noon, it happens between 12:30 and 1 o'clock, hosted by Janet Stewart, of course, who has taken over Noon for Marge while she's on mat leave. So you can leave a message for allergy questions that can be part of that conversation. 788-3797. And I believe I can hear the doctor now.
Can you hear me?
I absolutely can. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm having a hard time to hear you, but I'm going to try my best. Okay. Thank you for the invitation. That's wonderful. And I'm here to try to answer all your questions.
What are the most common allergy symptoms?
Well, allergy symptoms are different from different persons on people. Usually when you are talking about hay fever-like symptoms, like runny nose, stuffy nose, sneezing, itchy eyes, teary eyes. So all those symptoms are very typical during this time of the year. But also you need to remember that patients with allergic rhinitis, which is inflammation of the nose and the sinuses, also can present with asthma-like symptoms as well. And the organ, the nose and the lungs work together. So we need to assess both conditions at the same time.
Why do people get fatigued during allergy symptom? Why do some people get so tired?
That is a very excellent question. We're trying to learn more about allergic rhinitis. In the past, we used to say just runny nose, sneezing, but we know now that people with allergic rhinitis, they do not sleep well. They have this micro awakening at nighttime. They don't even know. They may have obstructive sleep apnea. They have some pause in the breathing, and they need some nap during the daytime because they don't have a good rested sleep. They are moving around, they tossing around at nighttime, and it's very difficult for them to have a rested sleep and continue with their daily activities. We know that this condition impacts significantly the quality of life of any patient suffering from allergies. And we know that in the last few years, there has been a study looking at the quality of life and the productivity of these patients. And this allergic rhinitis can impact the life of patients more than depression, more than anxiety, more than heart conditions. So it's a very significant impact of quality of life that these patients are going through.
In recent years, we've done reports that allergy season is actually getting longer because of the changes in our climate and the patterns in weather. Is that something you're seeing with your patients?
Yeah, we've seen a number of cases where the changes in the weather impact significantly the degree of allergic problems. If you remember last year, we used to have normally mid-April when they started tree season and started in Manitoba. But at the same time, that was delayed for a couple of weeks. But we also have other factors impacting the symptom of this patient, like the smoky environment due to the forest fire. So all those things work together to try to make those people suffer more every single season.
It's raining today. Will that help with pollen counts and dust, or will it have the opposite effect?
We know that, and I'll give you an example about tree season. We know that during the sunny, windy days, there's increased amount of allergens in the environment. Maybe the raining may push these allergens down into the surface, but still some people do not, it doesn't matter because there's some changes in the weather, changes in the pressure in the environment may suffer more.
When should a person be concerned about allergies?
Well, it depends on every patient. And we know that some of the people that we see have a mild disease, a very minimal symptoms, well controlled with a single antihistamine treatment. But other people do suffer more. They have a more moderate to severe disease, impacting the quality of life. They are not able to go to school, to learn appropriately, to work and be productive. They may have some what we call presenteeism, which means that they are working, but they are not producing as much. All those people, quality of life is impacted. Those people need to be assessed and try to come up with a plan of action and treatment to try to minimize the symptoms for them to become productive members of society.
Allergy goes hand in hand with asthma as well. What are your concerns when you think about how the temperature today is going to drop now and be cooler?
The issue about the correlation between asthma and allergic rhinitis or hay fever is significant. We know people who have allergic rhinitis, stuffy nose, runny nose, up to 40% of those patients may have a diagnosis of asthma. And on the other way, on the other ways, if you have asthma, about 70 to 80% of people may have allergic rhinitis or hay fever-like symptoms. So the two conditions goes hand to hand. You know, it's a very important statistic over the last few years suggested that about 10 to 30% of patients, adult patients, have this condition, allergic rhinitis, and up to 40% in pediatric population, pediatric meaning under 18 years of age, may have this condition as well. The World Health Organization has suggested, based on a study, that by 2050, about half of the population in the world may suffer from this condition. So it's certain you can see the trend of increasing the number of patients, maybe because of environmental changes in weather, has some impact on this condition as well.
Can you become, can your antihistamine stop working? Can you use it for so many years that actually it becomes non-effective for you?
There is no evidence that we know of that you can become or you can have a stop working this medication. And it depends on the clinical symptoms. People have used this medication for a long time, many years. Now, over the last few years, we know more about this medication. In the past, we used to use medication that were sedating, that make the people even more tired. We advise those patients to not take those medications, take the newer antihistamine. We don't have any evidence at this point that just because you're using the antihistamine will stop working for this condition. It's possible that the disease is getting worse. It's possible that they are using the medication intermittently. Sometimes they need to use it on a regular basis. And sometimes, for example, if you have a more nasal stuffiness, congestion of the nose, antihistamine may not be the only medication you need to try. There are other medications that we can use, such as intranasal steroid, to try to decrease inflammation in the nose. These conditions are inflammatory changes that happen not only in the nose, but also in the lungs.
So combining the medications together, is there any danger to taking something every single day for many years? Do we know that?
Yes, antihistamine has had the newer antihistamine that we know. We're not talking about the older antihistamine, the sedative one. The newer antihistamine, the second, the third generation, are quite safe. There's a long-term studies looking at the safety of this medication to use it for years and years. Even, for example, cetirizine, we sell them for reacting here. They have been studies in younger population, 12 months of age and older, for a year of using regular medication, and has been very safe to use. So we feel that this medication to use in that situation on a regular basis for extended period of time is safe. However, sometimes antihistamine doesn't work for specific symptoms, and you need to use other medication to try to control the symptoms and inflammation and nasal stuffiness.
Do allergies get better or worse as a person ages?
That's a good question. You know, as a rule of three, so we usually have a third of those patients will continue to have the allergies the way they were before. A third will get worse, and a third will improve over time. However, you need to be aware that about 80% of patients with hay fever, allergic rhinitis symptoms, the diagnosis of allergies are done before 20 years of age. And after that, as an adult, yes, it's rare, but again, you can have some allergies developing as a first time. But in the adulthood, you need to also aware when you assess the patient in the clinic, you need to see what are the symptoms. And we have the allergy testing. Obviously, we can tell the patient whether they're allergic to based on the clinical symptoms and based on the allergy assessment. However, some of the patients that we see in the adult, some of them, they have the similar symptoms, they look the same, they look like an allergy problem, but in fact, they do not have any positive result from the allergy testing. So that's what we call non-allergic rhinitis. They look the same as an allergy problem, but they do not have any allergy playing a role. They may be related to changes in the environment, changes in the pressure. This condition like a vasomotor rhinitis that can play a role and looks like an allergy problem.
Thank you very much for starting our conversation. I could talk all day about this. I've got the proof to show you. With my hives starting, I was brushing against some kind of a tree doing yard work. So I'm one of the people that struggles at this time of year and wants to learn all I can about it. But we're going to have a call-in later today. Dr. Cisneros, we're grateful for your time and apologize for the slight technical challenges. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. Have a great day.
You as well.
Thank you.
Via Zoom, that's Dr. Nestor Cisneros, an allergist and clinical immunologist with the Children's Hospital. So we will keep the conversation going on Radio Noon's Call-In with Janet Stewart today and her guest, Dr. Christina Kalasinski, between 12:30 and 1, all about allergies. If you have questions, please make sure you're tuned in there for the live call-in or leave them on the Radio Noon listener line right now at 788-3797. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 8:30. It is 7 degrees and cloudy. We had some showers earlier this morning. We'll have full-on rain later tonight. A high today of 14. A longtime Winnipeg business owner says he is frustrated after his St. Mary's Road business has been broken into for the third time in 6 months. Overnight, thieves smashed into Joe Daly's Sports and Framing. Owner Travis Daly says they took Jets jerseys signed by Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, and Morgan Barron, along with signed NFL jerseys and other items.
To the point where, do we want to keep doing this? We'll have to look at even further security measures that we might be able to implement. Aside from setting up a bed and staying here all night, I don't know what else we can do.
Daly says since the last break-in back in February, they've had security people staked out at the store, but this time, thieves got there before the guards arrived. Rural emergency departments across the province last year were closed for tens of thousands of hours. As CBC's Josh Crabb reports, it's causing uncertainty and anxiety among rural residents.
Last year, the emergency department in Arborg was one of 4 in Manitoba that closed indefinitely. Mayor Peter Duick says people have to drive 30 minutes to Gimli or an hour to Selkirk for treatment.
People can get just a cut in the finger that needs 3 stitches. You don't want to go to Selkirk for 3 stitches.
Across the province in 2023, rural emergency departments were shut down for more than 80,000 hours. That's according to data obtained by CBC News. It's largely due to staffing. Neepawa physician Dr. Nichelle Desolé says that causes uncertainty for people.
I'm sure it's stressful to think, what if I'm feeling unwell this weekend? Where am I going to go?
Dozens of others closed repeatedly, often for short times. Dr. Alex Chachinoff says it's not really an ER if it's not open 24/7.
The expectation of the public should be that an ER can handle any emergency, at least the first phase of it, and that it's open when you need it.
Manitoba's health minister didn't say exactly what the future holds for ERs that have closed frequently or indefinitely. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Arborg.
The inflation rate ticked up from 2.8% in February to 2.9% last month as we paid more for gasoline. Stats Canada reports gas prices rose 4.5% from a year ago, due partly to an increase in global oil prices. Shelter prices were up 6.5%. Mortgage interest costs jumped 25.4%. Rent prices rose 8.5% from last year. In Manitoba, inflation rose 0.8% in March, down slightly from 0.9% the month before. These inflation numbers come ahead of today's federal budget. Federal Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland delivers her budget this afternoon. You can hear all the details right here. Our budget special begins at 3. A Winnipeg senior says he will never again buy travel insurance by clicking on a box on an airline's website. James Parker says he learned the hard way. Cancellation insurance comes with a lot of fine print. The 78-year-old and his wife were supposed to fly to Calgary to visit family in January. They had to cancel after their relative's home was flooded. When they tried to cancel the trip, they were surprised to find they weren't covered.
You would think there would be some leeway. It was impossible for us at the time to make other arrangements, right? So, yeah, it was, yes. I thought it was unfair, and I questioned my idea about what insurance is for.
The Travel Health Insurance Association of Canada says coverage differs from policy to policy and recommends people read the fine print before traveling. The Winnipeg School Division wants more students who live with disabilities to be in catchment schools in their own neighborhoods. A letter from the superintendent to families says families will be given a choice, but principals and school teams are being asked to think about how students in specialized programs can be included. Rachel Smith has a 14-year-old son with cerebral palsy.
There were numerous times where it was suggested that he would be better off in a program outside of our neighborhood, and that wasn't what we wanted for him. So to me, what's happening now is I wouldn't have to have that fight in this day and age in the Winnipeg School Division.
Superintendent Matt Henderson met with educational assistants yesterday to discuss the changes. He says there will be no job losses or reductions to specialized programming. And businesses say the province's new security rebate doesn't offer enough help. Manitoba homeowners and business owners can get up to $300 towards things like security cameras and alarm systems. The Canadian Federation of Independent Business wants to meet with the Justice Minister to lobby for more. Soren Yu is a policy analyst at CFIB.
$300 is definitely a drop in the bucket for a lot of businesses who are spending up to tens of thousands of dollars to up their security or to fix their windows and so on.
The program starts in June. Any security equipment purchase made after last September 1st is eligible. The government's budgeted enough money to rebate more than 1,600 applicants. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Heather Wells.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from our news department this morning, out there with Joni Nicolo and Megan Ketchison. In traffic, quick update here before we go. Chief Peguis in Maine has been cleared now, and a concrete worker called about something that's coming up. There's going to be pouring today from 9:30 to 2:30, Mayfair and Queen Elizabeth Way. So there's a school zone and transit lane, so it's going to tend to be backed up. So in between 9:30 and 2:30, it could potentially rather be backed up. So you're going to watch for that. Abby, last word on this rain.
Throughout the day, we should be seeing cloudy skies and showers in most parts of the province. And remember the statement we have for the north: rain and then snow tonight into Wednesday and early Thursday. 30 to 50 millimeters expected. All through the province, we are seeing cloudy skies, except for Churchill. That is sunny. But Winnipeg today, we're heading to a high of 14.
It's rain and rebates. Hallelujah. It's the Budget Day song. All right, that's all I got for you, folks. But the budget is coming down this afternoon. Thanks to our live crew, May McKillop, Brad Lillies, and obviously Abby Adiyemi behind the glass there this morning. For a budget, remember there's a special. It's going to preempt the beginning of Up to Speed at 3 o'clock here on the radio. And then you'll get all your analysis from a Manitoba perspective after that. Thanks for listening. Take care.